Welcome back to the Pesky Report. This is episode 493 of the Pesky Report, brought to you by Beyond the Monster, as always, for your minor league show. My name is Derek, and I'm here with Jake and Hunter, as always, for a special MLB draft preview episode. We get to do these once a year, and we are happy to do this again. Plus, there's a lot of other stuff that went on. Also, some very fun stuff involving the Allan Castro fan club. So, shout out. We'll mention that right off the top. So I am personally excited for this show, even more so than I already was, considering Allan Castro won Eastern League Player of the Week. But that's besides the point. Let's get into the draft stuff. Let's kick things off with the draft stuff. I'm going to hand it over to Jake to let him kind of explain the draft, but we're going to kind of go through it, go over the overview. What picks the Red Sox have, how they got those picks or don't have those picks with the Bregman pick they lost. But Jake, I'll hand it over. The floor is yours. Where are the Red Sox picking? How many picks do they have? And everything else in between. Just lay it on us.
Yes. So the draft is this weekend, or it's Sunday and Monday. It's different this year than it has been in the last couple of years, where they spread it out over 3 days. This year they are only doing it. It's only 2 days. So it's the first 3 rounds are Sunday night, and then the whole rest of the draft, rounds 4 to 20, are all on Monday. And that's, something of a throwback. I remember when it all used to be in one day. I also remember when the MLB draft was conducted entirely over a conference call. But that's how old I am. But that's a whole other story. And honestly, that wasn't even that long ago. That was less than 20 years ago that it was like that. But anyway, the Red Sox are picking 15th in the first round. They added the 33rd pick in the draft in the Quinn Priester trade. We remember that. The Red Sox have a compensatory second round pick, which is 75th overall, that for what they got for when Nick Pivetta signed with the Padres. So that is after the second round. The Red Sox do not have a second round pick, as Derek alluded to, because of the fact that they signed Alex Bregman. And then the next pick that they have after that pick, the 75th pick for Pivetta, is the 87th pick, which is their own third round pick. And so those will be the picks on Sunday. And then the Red Sox have all of the rest of their picks. So rounds 4 to 20, they didn't lose any. I think you could still possibly lose like a 7th. You could lose a 5th round pick, I think, for signing multiple guys or whatever. So so that means that overall the Red Sox have, I think they basically net out as they have one extra pick, basically, because of, and you could say that basically like they lost the second round pick for Bregman, they gained one for Pivetta, but then they gained another one in this Priester trade. So overall, the Red Sox have a $12.4 million bonus pool in this year's draft. That is the 13th largest out of the 30 teams. So again, they're picking 15th, but they have the 13th largest bonus pool. I'll just throw out the slot values for those picks that they're going to make on Sunday night. 15th pick overall has a $5.114 million slot value. The 33rd pick has a $2.898 million slot value. 75th is $1.039 million. And then the 87th pick is $970,000. All of this matters. Okay. Like I kind of give this spiel every year, and I will give it again. The overall amount of bonus pool money that you have matters. That dictates everything that you can do in the draft. It dictates how much you can, the kind of risks you can take later in the first 10 picks, because you can go under or over. It matters that you're going to see guys get picked in the first 10, a team's first 10 rounds that are college seniors, and you're like, wait, why did they take this guy? They took that guy so they can sign him for $50,000 and give the other $200,000 in his slot bonus to somebody else that that is a tougher sign. So all of that stuff, all of it does matter, and we'll get into a little bit more of what the Red Sox strategy might be because of the slot values that they have. I just want to mention that like the slot values or the total bonus pool matters a bit in terms of the teams that are picking around them. Like, for example, the Giants are picking 13th, and they have one of the smallest bonus pools in this draft because of like the guys that they signed in the offseason. And so that they might do something weird with the 13th pick. They could pick somebody totally out of left field to try to save some money. Because basically, like, I think the 13th pick represents like 60% of their total bonus pool. The flip side of that is the Rays have the second biggest bonus pool, and they pick 14th. So they're in a position where they could take a risk on somebody, with that first pick of theirs. And so then the Red Sox are picking where they are, 15th overall. So I want to talk about strategy a little bit, and we're going to talk about specific names, guys who've been floated out there as potential guys that could get taken. I think that the Red Sox adding that 33rd pick completely changed the way that they could approach this draft, because that was an addition of almost $3 million in bonus pool money. And there's a lot of different things that you can do when you have that added bonus pool money. My feeling, if I had to sort of guess right now, based off of what I've read, what I've listened to other people say, is that I think the Red Sox, and I watch me be very wrong on this because I've certainly been wrong before. I think there's a very good chance that at the 15th pick, they take somebody that's like safe. And I'm not necessarily saying that they don't take whoever the best player is on the board. And I'm not necessarily saying that they're going to like go way off the board and take somebody that's like, that will sign for way under the $5.1 million. I just think that like, that's where they could save money. That's where they can save the most money in terms of like being able to spread that bonus around. And then with the 33rd pick, I think there's a high probability that they do what's called floating someone down to that pick, which is kind of basically what the Red Sox did they did that with Roman Anthony, really. I mean, they, in 2022, they kind of did that with Nazan Zanatello also, where they basically were like, the advisors, the amateur players don't have agents. They have advisors, but they're agents. But the advisors are presented, like multiple teams come to them and tell them, if you're available at this pick, we're going to give you this. And this is in particular for high school guys. And the teams, the players can can decide. They can somewhat dictate where they're going to go based off that. Now, it's not a guarantee that somebody's not going to come in and take you, which is what happened in 2021 when the Red Sox took Judd Fabian one pick before he had cut a deal with the Orioles at the next pick, and the Red Sox swooped in and took him. And obviously we know what happened there. The Red Sox didn't sign him. But I think you could definitely see that happen at pick 33, where the Red Sox cut a deal with somebody at 15, have them take a little bit less money, and they go to another a player, like a high school player. And there's a couple in mind there's one in particular that I have in mind, that they could go to them and say, this is how much money you're going to get from us. And I think the Red Sox are, especially for a hitter, like a high school hitter, the Red Sox are a pretty attractive place to play. You look at the track record of how they've developed guys, the bat speed training, like all that stuff. I think there might be a situation where the Red Sox would be a very attractive team for a guy that might be considering, am I going to go to college? Am I going to take the NIL money? Like whatever, like they could get a pretty good, the slot bonus there is like $3 million. It could be a $5 million offer or something like that. So, so there's a lot of different ways that things can go. I think that those are going to be the two biggest opportunities. And before I turn it back to Derek to maybe start to get into a little bit more of the strategy and different guys that they could take, I will say this, that the last 2 years, we went through this whole process and we were like, who are the Red Sox going to take? And at picks like 12, 13, the picks that they had those other years. And we threw out all these different
12 and 14.
12 and 14. And it all went out the window because a guy that was supposed to go in the top like 7 or 8 picks ended up falling to the Red Sox.
Kate Anderson, here we come, baby. Woo!
Yeah, so
yeah. No. Arnold, let's go.
So you guys are bringing up names of guys that are going to be in the top 10. The thing about this draft, though, that I will say is that there's a lot of talent in this draft. There's a lot of good players, but there's nobody that's like the can't miss. There's no Skeens. There's no Adley Rutschman. There's no, whatever. Like there's nobody that it's just like, this is the guy in this draft. So that might mean that like somebody could fall. And would they fall all the way to the Red Sox at 15? I don't know, because like I said, the Rays are picking at 14 and they have a huge bonus pool. So I don't know. The Red Sox, I think most likely scenario to me is they take the best guy on the board at 15, whoever that is. It may not be somebody that falls down in the draft, but it is also possibly that's going to be somebody that they could go to and be like, would you take 4.5? Would you take 4.6? And then they use that extra money for whoever they take at 33. Anyway, go ahead, Derek.
Yeah. Well, I also do want to get in a little bit on the 15th pick. What Red Sox Hall of Famer did the Red Sox take 15th overall?
Red Sox Hall with Dustin Pedroia?
Mm-mm.
No, he was like a second or third round pick. Was it Jason Varitek?
No,
they didn't draft him.
Lemons?
Older. No.
Older. Like a
Nesson.
MLB Hall of Famer?
Works
like
for
baseball
Nesson.
Hall of
Jim
Famer?
Rice?
I think Jim Rice.
Jim Rice? Okay, yeah. South Carolina.
Number retired, yeah.
Decent player.
There you go.
Yeah.
He wore number 14.
Wouldn't mind finding someone as good as Jim Rice.
Absolutely.
Now, the other times the Red Sox have picked a 15, 4 years later, they took Otis Foster. He didn't play in the big leagues.
Good name.
Good name. And then in 1995, they took Andy Yount, and he never made it to the big leagues.
Any relation to Robin is the question.
Maybe.
That's the question. I will add, though, some recent 15th overall picks. Our favorite switch pitcher, Urangelo Sanhe, however you say his name, I will never get it right. He went 15th last year. The year before that, Jacob Gonzales went to the White Sox, Dylan Lesko to the Padres, Sal Frelick to the Brewers, and Mick Abel. Those are the last 5 15th overall picks. Just some other notable names: Trent Grisham, Sean Newcomb, Tyler Naquin, Devin Mazzaraco, Stephen Drew, Scott Kazmir, and the big one in 2000, Chase Utley. Chase Utley in 2000. So you can still get a Hall of Fame caliber player. I mean, well, Jim Rice too, but in this 2000 onwards. Chase Utley being kind of the biggest one. I think Chase Utley has the most WAR of any B-WAR of any player picked at 15th overall. So just because the Red Sox are picking 15th doesn't mean this can't be I don't want to say franchise-altering pick, because it not necessarily will be, but who knows who they're going to pick, how that player is going to turn out. But obviously, like I said, there have been good players. Yes, there have been players who haven't panned out at 15 either, but that's with every single pick. There have been people who been picked first who haven't panned out either. So that's kind of how the draft goes. Now, the big thing, I think, in this draft, at least for me, it very much with how the Red Sox picks are, they have 3 in the top 75. Obviously, they have the 2 in the top 33. They have 15 and 33. The Rays are kind of pain in the asses because they got the 41st pick in the Jeffrey Springs trade. So they have 4 picks in the top 55. Just, pieces of crap, the Rays.
That's the
so
Rays
I thought like you said, Jake, I think it very much is a legitimate possibility. If someone does fall, odds are the Rays do take them before they get to the Red Sox. In all honesty, that's probably the odds. So Red Sox probably go best player available. And I'm not saying they're going to do this, but my thought process a little bit is if they're planning on floating someone down to 33, or actually if they're going to float someone down to 33, they're not going to take a high schooler who has signability question marks, or someone who's going to look for a high bonus. If they're trying to float someone down, in terms of they're not going to sign someone who's looking for more, way more than slot. Is what I'm saying. They're not.
I agree with you, but I think the whole reason why you would float somebody down is because they might threaten to go to college.
No. I mean, at 15, they're not going to take the person who's going to ask for over slot. Obviously, at 33, that person's going to get over slot if they're floating someone down. Yeah. But at 15, odds are they're probably not going to take someone who's also going to be over slot, and especially depending on how far over slot 33 is. Now, they could, right? And then they go way under slot on other picks. But they have about $8 million or so in their first 2 picks in bonus pool money, that's more than half of their money. That's almost 2/3 of their money. So now that doesn't mean they can't, they don't have to use that much money for those first 2 picks. Their first pick could sign for $4 million. Their second pick could sign for $2 million. And then their third pick could go and sign for $3 million, right? Who knows? That's the one thing with the MLB draft, that if you haven't paid attention to it before, you haven't listened to our draft preview shows before, it is very much a kind of keep your eye out for, because some teams will take best available. Some teams will kind of play their pool and try to manipulate the amount of pool money they have. And we've seen it from like a team like the Rangers before, taking Kumar Rocker third. Like, talk about manipulating the bonus pool money. Yeah, there's your manipulation there. I will say the Red Sox have done good though in the last, I want to 4 or 5 drafts. I mean, in terms of not going over slot for guys, or at least with their first pick, they got Braden Montgomery under slot and he fell to them. They got Teal under slot and he fell to them. In 2022, they got Mikey Romero under slot. A big part of that, though, like you said, Jake, was floating Roman Anthony down. And then they got Marcelo Meyer at slot, even though he was the projected number 1 pick, and they got him at 4 at slot money. So if we're going based off of that, odds are saying the Red Sox aren't going over slot. And if you want to push back till the 2020 draft, although there's a totally different dynamic there because the Red Sox only had 4 picks, Nick York was also under slot. So in their last 5 drafts, their first pick has been under slot 4 times and at slot money once. They haven't gone over slot. So that's a trend, I guess, to keep an eye out for. Obviously, Breslow was only in charge for the last draft, but a lot of the faces in the front office are still the same. Taboni's still there, obviously. It's Devin Pearson's in charge of the draft this year as their director of amateur scouting. So it's a lot of the same faces in the front office. Yes, the guy at the top has changed, but in terms of in the front office, still a lot of the faces are the same. I don't know, Jake. I don't know if we want to start getting into potential people who've been mocked there. Or
I think that at 15, I feel like the name that I've seen the most often is a logical one, and that's Gavin Kylan, who's the Tennessee second baseman. Great like contact numbers and somebody that I feel like he's been mocked there quite a bit. And if the name is familiar, that's because the Red Sox did draft him out of high school 3 years ago. He was the 12th round pick, and he or 13th round pick, in 2022. He was kind of a safety pick. It was sort of the expectation was that he was going to be a tough sign, that he was probably going to go to. He went to Louisville first. He eventually transferred to Tennessee. And I think he was just a safety in case the Red Sox didn't sign Roman Anthony, or they didn't sign like Brooks Brandon or that year. And so that matters because, like you said, Derek, there's a lot of people that, even though the front office has changed over, there are a lot of people in the front office who are still there, who were there 3 years ago, and they know Gavin Kylan. They know because even though it was, pretty clear they were not going to sign him, they drafted him. They have contact with him. They know who he is. They know his family. They know they know his personality, like that. All of that stuff. They have more intel on him than I think a lot of other teams probably do.
Zach Earhart.
Right, exactly. Same thing happened there.
Which I will float my boat on that and saying I was like the one person who mentioned that before the draft.
Unfortunately, you're not the only person connecting the Red Sox to Gavin Kylan.
I know. It would have been a crazy thing if I somehow was the only person again and they picked them. But it's more obvious because he's projected to be a first round pick.
Right. So I think that that is like a pretty obvious name. I think that one thing I've heard, one thing that I've read a lot of from the experts, the Carlos Collazo and Jim Callis and the Kylie McDaniel and others, is that it might surprise people to hear this, but the consensus seems to be that the Red Sox are more in on hitters with that 15th pick than they are pitchers. Excuse me. And I think that the reason why is just because of who looks like they're going to be available at that point in the draft. Like, there's a good amount of college pitching in the draft. You guys mentioned a few of the names, like especially high up, but I think like those guys are going to go probably in the top 10 or top 12 picks. And so what's going to be kind of left is high school hitters, which is there's a good crop this year, but it's not like incredible. And so I think Kylan is there. Another name that has been thrown out a bunch is Jace Laviolette, who was a guy that was like supposed to be sort of more, he was definitely more highly touted coming into this year. He's an outfielder from Texas A&M. I got to shout out Jeff Ponce at Baseball America, who was he went on the Sox prospect spot and talked with Ian Kundle, and he said I like spit out my coffee when he said this. He said that Jace Laviolette is the Mike Trout of Judd Fabians. And I cracked up. I'm like, you have to be a total nerd to get that, but that's just like, that's so funny. Like, shout out to Jeff for the line of the year. So that is kind of the idea of what he is. But definitely somebody to watch there. As far as other like high school or other college hitters go, I'm going to butcher his name, but Wehaya Aloy. I haven't really had to say that name out loud. Another one, high school or a college shortstop from Arkansas. Brendan Summerhill, outfielder from Arizona. Merrick Houston, shortstop from Wake Forest. Those are all the kind of like, and there's been some other names too. Like, I don't know that he's going to fall as far, but I know people like they really want a catcher. But Ike Irish from Auburn is like a guy who is like,
if he's going to play catcher,
is a catcher or whatever, right? So those are names to keep an eye on. I will say that there is he's not going to fall, but I will mention there is somebody very high up in the draft, Liam Doyle from Tennessee, who is I think he was born in Boston. Like he's from New Hampshire, I think, right? Like he grew up in New Hampshire. So that's just a name to keep an eye on at the top of the draft, just as a local connection. But I think that a lot of these other guys like Ava Arquette, like other names, are going to go higher up. The one thing I thought was interesting today, and we're talking about guys that are like floating down or guys falling down in the draft, is that Baseball America did a staff draft today where basically like they go through like each guy like on the staff like does like the mock draft. It's not like Carlos usually does the mock drafts. In that last staff draft, they did have Billy Carlson, who was a California shortstop, which of course the Red Sox you can't kill the man, but you can kill the man, but you can't kill the
California
idea.
Too. Now high school has like five guys in the top 150 as well.
Yeah, they did have Billy Carlson falling down to the Red Sox at 15. Now I actually think that's going to happen? No, that's unlikely. But that was interesting that's how that draft shook out. And then I just want to mention too, just like while we're on this topic, like there is a possibility that there's certainly, given who they've got here, they could take a pitcher. There's no question about it. There's some guys like Tyler Bremner and a few other names, but I think the big name, the name that I've seen connected to the Red Sox more often than not, is Gage Wood from Arkansas, who threw the first no-hitter in the College World Series since 1960 a couple weeks ago. So he's kind of a bit of a national phenomenon already. People know who he is. That's a name to watch there. It's just interesting that the experts who follow this stuff have not connected the Red Sox to arms at all with that first pick.
I will check another name. I was looking at MLB.com earlier, and they mentioned Steele Hall as a potential guy in their mock draft.
Yeah.
Obviously, shortstop, high school shortstop out of Alabama, though, not California.
Not California.
I know Pipeline has him ranked 12th. I like the names I have listed. I have Hall, Merrick Houston, obviously out of Wake Forest, Summerhill out of Arizona. So a lot of kind of college guys killing. I think the big thing, if we want to I'll just slightly shift the conversation to pick 33. A lot of talk about maybe Gavin Feen being kind of floated down to 33. That's been a lot. There's been a lot of talk on that, and that wouldn't be surprising at all. But just to jump back to the 15th pick, don't think the Red Sox will take him. I don't see them taking a high school pitcher at 15. Don't see it happening at all. I'm just saying it would be fun. Out of Oregon, left-handed pitcher Cruz Schoolcraft is 6'8".
Amazing name too. One of the best names.
Amazing name. 6'8".
6'8". Like you said, a high school pitcher that early, I would be.
They're not gonna do. I highly doubt they do it unless like something wacky happens. I think he's also committed to Tennessee. He's committed to Tennessee. I highly doubt the Red Sox take him.
Yeah, I do too.
But it would be. I mean, I will get into some taller pitchers in a little bit, but just kind of list some of them off. But like the Red Sox have taken a lot of tall, big body pitchers. I didn't mean big body in terms of just like tall and like, bigger than your average person. Like look at Tolle, Clark, etc. Run down the list last year, years before that, they've just taken a ton of tall pitchers. But yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about them maybe floating Fiend down to.
I've seen a bunch of that, like people saying that he's a California high school kid. He is a third baseman, really, though he's not a shortstop. But I've seen multiple people say that. I think it was Carlos Collazo in his last mock. I have it right here. This is the last few weeks. Gavin Fiend, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, has had a bit of a resurgence of buzz. I guess basically like he's a guy that came into this year with a lot of buzz, a lot of hype, and he did not really have a very good spring season. But it sounds like there were some, like he worked out for teams and like draft combine and all that stuff, and he looked great. So I think like that's why the buzz is starting to come back up a little bit. It seemed to me like if he seemed like the perfect type of guy that if he didn't feel like he was getting enough bonus wise, he would just go to college. So, you might have to pony up to get him, and the Red Sox might be in a good spot to be able to do that. Considering where they're picking, like it's good to it's good that 33rd pick they're picking in front of the Rays that have those like sort of multiple picks in the 40s and that kind of thing. So definitely that's a name to watch there. And I would just mention like a few other, like a couple of college catchers like Caden Bodine from Coastal Carolina, Luke Stevenson from North Carolina, names that are possibilities at that second pick. I'll also mention another name that has, I guess, gotten some helium that I've seen connected to the Red Sox is Brady Ebel, also from, I think he's the same school as Billy Carlson, like he's his teammate. Somebody who could get, he could be in contention possibly as high as the 33rd pick. I know like MLB has him ranked like 64th, but what you're definitely going to see with the draft is that the where guys get ranked is not necessarily analogous to where they end up getting picked usually, because teams have very different opinions of players across the board. So those are some of the, but like let's get into some of the big literally the big pitchers, and we've been talking for a while, and Hunter's been sitting patiently. He wants to talk about Allan Castro. So
I have a couple notes at
go ahead.
Of the draft. No. It's for the end. It's just two players I wanted to mention.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. I'll get into some of the big pitchers I've listed. First, I'm going in order of MLB pipeline ranking. At 38, they have Riley Quick, a right-handed pitcher out of Alabama. Listed, he's 6'6". He's already had Tommy John. He actually came back early from Tommy John, earlier than expected. Pitch this year. Interesting in terms of, like I said, 6'6", right-handed pitcher. Aaron Watson is a high school pitcher out of Trinity Christian in Florida. He's ranked 45th. He's also a right-hander. He's listed at 6'5". But I also found that he is committed to Virginia, so who knows? Obviously, I think the Red Sox are more likely to go college pitcher, especially once you get past those first two picks. But still, big dude. I figured I might as well include him. Same thing with Landon Harmon, high school pitcher out of Missouri, but he's 6'5" as well. And then I think you get into the college pitchers. Marcus Phillips is out of Tennessee. He's only 6'4". I say only 6'4". He's ranked 61st. He's coming from Tennessee. He can throw triple digits, and he'll definitely be an interesting piece. Definitely has bullpen. Has bullpen potential if working as a starter doesn't work. And then you take his teammate who is 6'6" and ranked 70th, AJ Russell, another big pitcher out of Tennessee. He's got a 70 grade fastball. And he was really good as a freshman, as a reliever. And he had internal brace surgery last June. And Tennessee was kind of slow in working him back this year. So maybe you find a little bit of value there because he was slow to work back. He's already kind of had a major elbow surgery. So I feel like it feels like every pitcher gets Tommy John or now internal brace. So if you've already had it once, maybe you won't have it again, hopefully. Or at least I feel like that would be a hope there. I'm moving on from the Tennessee guys. This one's the really interesting. 6'8". He's ranked 74th out of Michigan State, left-handed pitcher. Joseph Dzierwa, whatever, Dzierwa. I will never be able to pronounce that. But he's 6'8" out of Michigan State. He's been their number one starter since his freshman year. And what I thought was interesting, he added 2 miles per hour to his fastball, but he's still only sitting 90 to 93, and he's maxed out at 95. And he misses a lot of bats because of his command and the wide angle he creates with his low 3/4 arm slot. I don't know if that sounds familiar or not. But when I kind of hear lower arm slot, some deception there, I think a little bit kind of Payton Tolle-ish, kind of. Also, 6'8", like just massive. And also, too, throwing low 90s. Maybe Red Sox can tick up his velo if that's someone they take. Then another 6'8" guy, this time coming from LSU, Chase Shores. He's 6'8", good fastball. He's maxed out at 101. So already a guy who throws hard. So maybe not like the Red Sox favorite type of developmental projects, and he already throws really hard. And then the last one I thought that was the most interesting, coming out of Niagara County Community College. A right-handed pitcher, he's ranked 136 by MiLB Pipeline. He's 6'6", Matt Barr. He's a right-handed pitcher. He's committed to Tennessee. But he's 6'6". His fastball's up to 97 with good life, and he throws all of his pitches. His fastball, slider, and curveball all have elite spin rates, and he's missed a ton of bats at JUCO, which kind of immediately popped in my head and went, "Oh, Brandon Clark, hello, right-handed Brandon Clark." So I'm not saying the Red Sox are going to take these guys, but they're just interesting because they're massive human beings and they're pitchers, and especially ones I was looking at. Joseph, whatever his last name is, I'll never be able to say it because he's, kind of like a funky arm angle from the left side at 6'8", and then Matt Barr, considering JUCO guy, has looked really good in JUCO, has a big commitment to Tennessee, kind of like Clark. Where's Clark committed again last year? Was it Florida State?
Thought it was Florida State. Yeah,
I thought it was Florida State. Yeah. So kind of both big commitments there. I think Tennessee's probably a bigger commitment, arguably, but I mean Florida State is still very good college baseball school. So I thought those two kind of stuck out to me, especially considering some comparables to guys the Red Sox drafted just last year. Now that's me just kind of just throwing stuff out there and not having any intel on it, obviously. But I did find, like I said, especially those two I found very interesting. And like I said, 6'8" and 6'6". So just, massive human beings.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think you're onto something with those. Like, I definitely, based off of how the Red Sox drafted last year, like, I would not be at all surprised if they do that. If they go that route. So yeah, it's hard to say, who they're going to go after. I think there is maybe one school of thought that the Red Sox went really heavy on pitching in last year's draft. So maybe this year they'll scale back a little bit and try to fill the coffers of some of the position players a little bit more. As things go forward, that wouldn't really surprise me. But who knows?
They're definitely still going to take a few pitchers, though. It's not like they're going to.
Oh, of course.
No, I'm just throwing that out there too. Just because they might go hitter heavy doesn't mean they're going to totally avoid pitchers. Right, and it's not like last year they didn't draft any position players after Braden Montgomery. Like, they drafted a bunch, but obviously the focus was pitching, and it was big pitching, and it was clear that was what they wanted to kind of focus on. Maybe this year it's a little bit different, but we'll see. Yes, Hunter, what do you have?
One note I had was just that Kyle Teal's brother, Aiden Teal, is in this draft. He's an outfielder. He's not going like first round or anything. He'll be a couple rounds after that. But just someone I'm intrigued in because of his brother's work commitment and how much of just a gamer Kyle Teal is. That's kind of a trait I feel like gets passed around in a family. That's something that there's always a lot of similarities between parents, between brother and sister, between siblings, whatever it is. So just a name that at some point we'll see him drafted. And just I want to let people know, like, hey, Aiden Teal, Kyle Teal's brother, is in this draft. Every year there's a couple players that I'll look at that are not like, I'm not saying like 15th round or anything, but like slightly later in the draft. That I end up falling in love with just by watching highlights and reading a little bit about them. And this year, a guy that admittedly I started looking at him because his name is Maximus Martin, and I was like, that's just a badass name. I absolutely love that name. Shortstop from Kansas State, and really just I was very pleased with what I saw. He hit over 300 this year, 600 slugging percentage, 420 on base percentage. Also played the outfield. I think he kind of started that this year. Or no, I'm sorry. I think he started playing shortstop more this year because how do you say his name? Callan Culpepper.
I think it's Kalen Culpepper.
Kalen Culpepper, yeah, the Twins last year's first round draft pick. He kind of took over for him at shortstop. But just someone I was very interested in. Seems like he can hit the ball 500 miles. Obviously, that's with a metal bat, but still. And then just I'm the resident Lafayette fan here. My brother coaches football at Lafayette, and there were just a couple seniors this year that I thought were really good. Who they could end up sneaking in later rounds. Obviously, friend of the show, Alex Bouchard. Bouchard played at Lehigh, their biggest rival, and he got drafted. So it's not crazy for Patriot League players to get drafted. Easton Brenner and Michael Zarillo, both outfielders, both put up phenomenal numbers this year. And just two names that I wouldn't mind seeing. I mean, Easton Brenner hit 340. Obviously, I know it's Patriot League, it's college, whatever you want to say. But 340, played every single game this year. Near 500 on base percentage, I believe. Walked a ton more than he struck out. So just someone that I feel like could be a good college. I don't want to say project, but I mean, he would be a later round pick. So like a college project of someone who maybe you hit the lottery with as I'm trying to think of a good comp without it being, I hate player comps, but just someone who he'll come in with the right approach. He'll draw a lot of walks. He'll maybe doesn't hit for a ton of power. I guess if I have to throw out a comp there, it's kind of Chase Mydroth like, where you're never going to get like 20, 30 home run power or anything, but he's going to do all the little things right. So just someone I wouldn't mind seeing the Red Sox take a 18th round flyer on or something. That's all I have.
Yeah. The other thing I just want to also add to, is don't like the Red Sox, even in recent years. I mean, Hunter Dobbins was an 8th round pick. Luis Guerrero was a 17th round pick. There's still talent to find late in the draft. And then I also think another thing I'll just add to, if you're kind of just somewhat following draft and the Red Sox maybe take a college pitcher with, I don't know, a 6 ERA, don't lose your mind. Just in the sense of like Brian Wu had a 6 ERA in college and had one of the highest ERAs in college, and look at him now. So I'm just saying, right? I'm just saying, if you see them take someone with a 5 or 6 ERA, don't lose your mind.
Yeah, and my last thing is just like, again, if you see the Red Sox taking a guy, even if it's like the first couple picks and it's, we think that they're going to be signed for less or whatever, like they're not being cheap. Like this is, or if they take a high school or they take a college senior in the 4th round or 5th round or something like that, the Red Sox spend their entire draft pool every year. Plus you can also spend up to 5% more than your total bonus pool without being penalized. The Red Sox do that every single year. They maybe will leave like some spare change on the table. Maybe they'll leave like an extra couple $100 or something. Usually they hit it right on the nose. Not every team spends their whole bonus pool, and and most teams do, but not everyone does. And not every team, but there are more teams that do not spend the 5% overage either. So like, I think the Guardians are a team that famously they spend their entire bonus pool, but they do not spend over it. They don't do the 5% overage. The Red Sox will spend their entire bonus pool and the overage. If they don't, then that means something went wrong. It's a Judd Fabian thing, like that kind of thing, where they don't sign a guy at the end. Like there is exception to it where something can happen, but it's not for a lack of trying. It's not about them being cheap. Like, so if you see something and it seems a little bit weird, or they're not spending as much in terms of the bonus pool, like what the slot is, that kind of thing, there's a method to the madness, and it will hopefully at the end of the day, it will all make sense. And it's not a situation where they're trying to save a couple $1 million to put back in John Henry's pocket. Like that's not what's going to happen here.
Yeah, and I'll also just quickly add to, like, Connor Kaysen last year got over $1 million. And he was like an 8th round pick or whatever the number what round was.
Yeah.
Brooks Brandon was a 9th round pick, and he got like late like second round compensation or early 3rd round money, right? Like, just they take a college senior and he ends up signing for like $50K. Nathan Hickey got $1 million and as a 5th round pick, right? Like $1 million at that draft was probably late 2nd round, early 3rd round, right? So there is going to be a lot of money manipulation. So if you're new to the MLB draft, it can get a little bit confusing, but just try and stick along for the ride. If a team makes a pick that seems weird, there's a strategy behind it. Most of the time, unless they're just dumb, like, I don't know, the Miami Marlins or the Colorado Rockies. But that's besides the point. Moving on to a team that would never deserve a player this amazing. Those teams would never deserve a player this amazing. Allan Castro won Eastern League Player of the Week. Yay! Allan Castro this past week, 12 for 24 in 6 games, so average of 2 hits per game. 3 doubles, a triple, a homer, 6 RBIs, and then 3 walks as well, with just the 4 strikeouts. Allan Castro is going to be the first Red Sox switch hitter to play 100 games in a season since Pablo Sandoval. So, he's going to be, the most amazingest switch hitter that anyone's ever seen. Definitely. No, but in all seriousness though, Allan Castro this year hitting over 300, 301, 381, 470, 851 is the slash line. Or at least that's what it is according to Sox Prospects. And I'm assuming they're right because they're pretty much right on everything. Obviously, with being a switch hitter, there's a little bit of concern about him versus righties or versus lefties. This year against righties, he's hitting. You'd rather have him be good against righties than lefties if you had to pick one. Against righties this year, he's hitting 319 with a 399 on base, a 514 slugging, and a 913 OPS. And he's got 7 doubles, a triple, and 6 homers. Against left-handed pitching, he's 6 for 28 with just a double and 3 walks, 5 strikeouts. Like I said, that's only in 28 at bats. So it's interesting. I don't know what the rate stats would be. He might strike out a tiny bit more against right-handed pitching, but he also does a lot more damage against right-handed pitching. I don't like bringing it up, but we've seen like what's done for Abram Leendo and him not switch hitting. We've seen like Cedric Mullins is a prime example, I feel like, in terms of at the big league level. So I'm not saying Allan Castro is going to stop switch hitting. I'm not saying that, but his numbers against righties, especially this year, have been absurd. Yes, the numbers against lefties a little bit concerning. Over his career, last year he was, under 257 in Greenville against lefties with a 721 OPS, and then he didn't have a hit in 7 at bats against lefties in his short time last year in AA, albeit he struggled in general. But he's definitely killing right-handed pitching this year, and it's going to get interesting. He's Rule 5 eligible. An outfielder, so that's another interesting step for him in the organization, considering they already have too many outfielders at the big league level. But you also do wonder if he continues hitting right-handed pitching like this, do we see hey, Allan Castro end of the year call up to Worcester? Because if that does, I'm going to Worcester. I'm just throwing that out there now. I will be at Worcester if Allan Castro gets called up to Worcester. But I think he's putting himself in a really interesting situation. He's now almost like a prime trade candidate, though, in some ways, because he's Rule 5 eligible and so many outfielders, and it sucks to see. And if that happens, it would suck to see if that happens. But he's been playing very well this year. And, considering now that Yophery Garcia and Blaze Jordan are out of Portland, you can very much make the argument that he's been their best player. And when you put together a week like this, can you really argue it? At the very least on the position player side, can you really argue it when he puts up 12 hits in a week? I don't know if you can. I'm not trying to float the boat super high just because of the fan club, but I am genuinely scared of the trade deadline, but also excited to see what Allan Castro does, and hopefully it's with the Red Sox. Hopefully. Yeah,
he's as much as I don't want to say it, it does seem like he's a prime trade candidate. I think we're headed for another one of those weird deadlines where they're selling off some pieces and they are buying other pieces. I think they're going to sell like some major league talent and then also buy major league talent. And it's going to be one of those weird, it's what we've seen the last like 3 years. And Allan Castro seems like someone who would be a very good piece to get something semi-decent in return. It hasn't just been this week though. He's actually on a 9-game hitting streak and he's on a 7-game multi-hit streak, which is just insane. Every single game this week, he had 2 hits. And then the last game that he played last week, he had a 3-hit game. And yeah, like you said, the numbers have been fantastic. He's only 22. This is kind of like his second breakout season in the last 3 years. So it does seem like there's been heavy, significant growth with his game over the last 3 seasons. So it's really interesting to see what he can keep doing, how he can keep expanding. And I completely agree with you. He's probably been their best hitter. It's crazy to think about. I feel like the last few weeks, every time we've gotten on, like before the show, one of the things we talk about is that there's not much to talk about with Portland. That was like always the team where it was like, oh, well, Allan Castro's having a decent week and Mikey Romero's hurt and like no one else is really doing anything. And now where I don't want to say starting the show because we talked about the draft, but we're starting the the minor league portion with Portland because it's really not just Allan Castro. There's a couple people we're going to talk about, but Allan Castro has been the one that has really kept the offense afloat when everyone else was struggling and when Romero was hurt. And now they have really good pitching, which they've had all year, but they've added even more into that. And now they have not just Allan Castro, but they have multiple other people helping. And even with those other people helping, Allan Castro still seems to be the one over the last 9 games who has really stood out above everyone else.
I'll also just add his last 100 plate appearances, 341, 420, nice, 557, and for a 977 OPS with 10 extra base hits, 4 of them being homers. Yeah, just an absurd run. And if you take out the first game of that stretch and you go to his last 96 plate appearances, the OPS jumps to 1021. That's kind of being a little bit more cherry picking though. But we cherry pick stats whenever if it's the narrative. Not always, but like occasionally.
That's what all stat looking at is though.
That's what we do here.
Every single time someone throws out a stat, it's cherry picking because even if it's like, oh, this year, technically you're still cherry picking. If you're talking about like this year and it's like, oh, why don't you talk about that? Like every stat's cherry picking to some degree. Yeah,
but like his last 100 play appearances has been very good. But if you push the last 96, the OPS goes over 1,000. I'm just saying. It is kind of, but yes, he's been very good as of late. Jake, what do you have?
Yeah, it's just wild that he rose his batting average up from 256 to 301 in 9 days. And I think that I felt like this season for the most part he'd been pretty good. Not like he'd get into these like prolonged slumps or anything like that. And I think he does a really good job, I think, of putting the bat on the ball. He's not like a big strikeout guy. And I think there's value in that no matter what. I think he's definitely somebody that will have value to a team, whether it's the Red Sox or somebody else. I think obviously the Red Sox are in this position where they have so much outfield depth that now, there's a lot of smoke going around today about is there going to be a trade involving somebody on the major league roster like sooner rather than later. And I think that is, going to make it so that it's hard to imagine that we see an outfielder. We'll talk about Worcester and Yophery Garcia and stuff like that. It's just hard. It's hard for these guys to break through. So I agree that I think that the deadline this year, I feel like the Red Sox are going to probably do a lot of moving guys who are like Rule 5 eligible, who are kind of maybe extra pieces, quote unquote. And I do think that Allan Castro is somebody who has put himself in the conversation of being a player that other teams would probably be interested in. And we'll see what happens. It's going to be a very interesting next few weeks here.
Although I will just quickly add, an Allan Castro, Cedar Rafaela, and Roman Anthony outfield would go so hard. It would go so hard. It would.
There are other hitters that had big weeks for Portland, though, and I think it's kind of funny because two of them could also be involved in trade talks in the upcoming weeks. In Mikey Romero, he went 9 for 30, 2 doubles, a homer. He's slashing 278, 344, 485. He's got 13 doubles, 2 triples, 8 homers. He's driven in 32 runs. He's just been phenomenal since coming back from injury. He missed a couple weeks, and it's just really good to see he hasn't missed a beat. He looks phenomenal out there. He like 3 days ago, I think, drew a walk to get him to 19 walks on the year, which is more than he had all of last year. So that's I think it's the most he's ever had in a season. So it's just that we've talked about it before, how he was one of the players who there was discussions of he wanted to work on drawing more walks. He said that to us directly. So did Blaze Jordan. We had heard that was something they wanted Yophery Garcia to work on. And it seems like all of them have made strides in that area, which is phenomenal. James Tibbs III hit his first Double-A and Red Sox homer this week. He's been really good. 286, 378, 397 slash line, 2 doubles, 1 triple, 1 homer. I think people would maybe be hoping for more home runs at this point, but I'm not going to complain about him with the 286 average and the 378 on base percentage. That's kind of more what I was interested in seeing at first. Obviously, I'm hoping the home runs come. I'm hoping the power gets there. But it was one of those things where he got traded here, didn't have like the best average in high A, which I know average is far from everything. But he got here and immediately got sent to Double-A. And my fear was that he was going to go there and hit like 130 for 4 weeks, and fans would just be going nuts because, oh my God, the guy, one of the big names that we got for Rafael Devers is not even hitting close to his weight in Double-A. So it's just been really good to see him not have those issues. And then the other hitter I had was Abram Liendo, 8 for 18 with a pair of doubles, 4 steals and 4 attempts this week. He's nowhere near where he was at the start of the year, obviously, but we all expected him to cool down. But he kind of cooled down to an extreme level. He dipped under 200 at one point. He's back up to 225, 296, 303, 10 doubles, 1 triple, 2 homers. He's got 22 steals and 26 attempts. Plays phenomenal defense at multiple positions in the infield. And it's really good to see him figuring things out at the plate again, because I think he's a very important part of that Portland offense. We kind of talked about it with Max Ferguson last week, where they need these guys at the bottom of the lineup who can get on and then get into scoring position quickly. And Liendo is right there with Ferguson as someone who, if they get on first base, there's a 90% chance they're going to steal second base, and there's a very high chance they're not going to get thrown out. So he's just such an important piece for the development of Romero, Castro, Tibbs, all the guys at the top of the lineup who you want to have hitting with people in scoring position. And Masataka Yoshida played for Portland this week in some rehab starts. And so he was usually batting, I believe, second. And it was fun to see him drive in Abram Liendo, I believe, on 2 plate appearances in a single game. It wasn't 2 straight at-bats, but he had a pair of RBI singles, and both times Abram Liendo came home to score. So again, Liendo getting on base and stealing second put him into a position to score on a ground ball to right field.
I don't really have anything else on the hitters if we want to move on to the pitching side of things. Masa Yoshida in the Scooby-Doo uniform was.
I was just about to say that.
A sight to behold.
I was just about to say that. Also, Zach Erhard had 3 extra base hits this week, including a homer. So, yeah. So, shout out.
Okay. Pitchers, I'll talk about it. Is Payton Tolle the best pitching prospect in baseball right now?
I have a take.
Who's to say? Well, Hunter's to say. What's your take?
I have a take that I meant to bring up last week, and I tweeted out. I said, "Someone remind me on Monday." I have a prospect take. I'm not saying right now, but also maybe right now. I might have Payton Tolle as my top prospect in the Red Sox system.
Wow. Yeah,
not counting
currently
like Roman Anthony. I don't count them because they're in the majors.
So it's an interesting question because I think it comes down to, it's basically, to me, there's like three names, or I guess there's more than that, but basically like it's Tolle, it's Franklin Arias. Where do you fit Luis Perales in there, who hasn't pitched in like a year? I guess Yophery Garcia is in the conversation because he's in AAA. I don't know. It's an interesting question. Like, do you prefer the pitcher with like the high ceiling that we think is getting guys out at the AA level, or is it the sort of shortstop who's like not only 19 years old and is hitting really well in high A, doesn't really have his power yet, but is like showing like a really strong hit tool? Like, it's a good question, like about who is really, and it's not the kind of conversation that we typically have because, there are other places that do the rankings. Baseball America just came out with their new top 30 for the Red Sox. They still had like Anthony and Meyer 1, 2, because technically they're still prospects. I think they had Arias third. And I think they had Tolle, or maybe they had Tolle third. I'd have to look it up. But as far as Tolle goes, yeah, I think you can argue this, like, who are some of the other guys that are still in the minors? So like not counting like Jacob Mizrachi and like other guys, like I guess like Thomas White is probably up there. Who?
Bubba Chandler, probably.
So I'd say Bubba Chandler is probably the best pitching prospect in the minors.
Although he should be getting up to the big leagues at some point, like, in all honesty.
Yeah,
like, I don't know what
that's a joke.
I mean, the Pirates.
What the hell are the Pirates doing?
And like you could also maybe argue Painter, but like also Painter's got to be in the big leagues soon.
But Painter like has not had a good season.
Well,
like,
but
it doesn't matter. I guess not. Like, but I think like if you're looking at, like, I think Tolle has just like, he's come on like a freight train, honestly. And it's like, looking at other guys like, Painter.
His biggest comp might be Noah Schultz in terms of.
I was going to say Noah Schultz in terms of like lefties, right? Like I think that
Schultz has had 3 really bad starts in AAA though.
Yeah. Mizrachi's in the big leagues. Rhett Lauder, he's
also injured and has pitched in the big leagues.
He's injured. Travis Sikora. So like Hagen Smith, and has Hagen Smith pitched in the big leagues yet? I don't think so.
No. He's
in
AA. He's got a 2.70 ERA and 9 AA starts this year.
So it's a conversation at least. But as far as what Tolle did this week, he came on in relief of Houck, right? In one of the games over the weekend, he gave up a home run. He pitched 4 innings. He gave up a home run, and that was it. Like he gave up one other hit, no walks, 8 strikeouts in 4 innings. The stuff is just ridiculous, and guys just don't know what to do with it. And I don't know. It's only his his second appearance in AA so far. Maybe I think there's a lot of question of like already the starting is like, are they going to fast track him to get him to the big leagues, that kind of thing. I think with pitchers, it's more of a legit conversation about how quick you want to move a guy. I do think that there is something to be said for keeping a guy at a level for a while. We talk about this more with hitters than pitchers, but like give him an opportunity to maybe face the same team a couple of times, face the same hitters a couple of times, see how he kind of develops and goes that way. But man, there is just like, there's so much to be excited about with this guy. And it's like we talk about it all the time. He had that terrible start at the beginning of the year. Like that first start was so bad. And just like since then, he's had like a couple of bumps in the road, but nothing significant. He's just so fun to watch. He is just electric out there. He also like definitely has some attitude on the mound. I think there was like one guy in this last outing that he struck out. He comes off the mound and he's like he's barking at somebody. I don't know who it was. Maybe it was maybe Ronald Rosario was catching. I'm not sure who was catching him, but just like just you could tell he was barking at someone or something. And it's like, yes, I want the guy. I want this fucking the 6'7", 6'8" guy with some dog in him that's just like gonna intimidate guys, and which it seems like
he's got that dog in him.
Basically, but that's what's funny is that like you listen to him talk. I've seen interviews with him, and everybody's just like, he's like the best dude in the world. So but I like the guy that's like the best dude in the world off the field, but then on the mound is like you don't like is just a killer. Like you don't want to mess with him. So I think that's kind of what we got with Payton Tolle so far. So it couldn't possibly be going better. His start to his Double-A career.
He's also the dugout guy doing all the celebrations, which I absolutely love. But yeah, he like you
He'll
said,
he'll fit right in with this Red Sox team.
Exactly. He fits right in with Derrik Crochet. He's
Especially
a lefty who dominates on the mound, and then
head guy gets traded away.
True.
Away.
But he, like you said, came out for Tanner Houck. I feel bad for New Hampshire this week. They had Masataka Yoshida going against them. Tanner Houck made a rehab start. Hunter Dobbins made a rehab start. Like they went from it was a Tanner Houck and with Payton Tolle piggybacking him, and then it was Hunter Dobbins with David Sandlin piggybacking him. I'd be pissed off if I was them. That's just filth. I mean, two of those guys are in Double-A still, but it's just first off, he got the 4-inning save, which is cool. So he now has a minor league save on his record. But like he hit 98. He hit 98 his last time out too. The thing with me, why I'm considering him the best prospect in the system, it's like I have a weird thing where I'm grading them off 20 different things. There's like the potential of what they could be, but then there's also the floor of what they are, of what they could be. And to me, he's got like the highest floor and possibly the highest potential. It's between him, Perales, and Arias probably. But like he could, like we talked about this last week. Jake, you've mentioned it a ton. He could go pitch in the majors right now as a relief guy and probably be fine. Like he has a ridiculous fastball. The secondary stuff isn't completely there yet, but as a relief pitcher, you can kind of rely on a 98-mile-an-hour fastball with that ridiculous extension he has, and then throw the other stuff to shake people off every once in a while. So like I already think you could plop him into the majors and have him be a useful asset to your team. And then at the same time, he has legitimate ace potential. Like he really does. He can be a monster left-handed pitcher, a la Garrett Crochet, who just strikes out a gazillion people, doesn't walk a ton of people. He has the right attitude on the mound, like you said. He's not too cocky, but like he's barking a little bit. He's getting really into the moment. Seeing him get to close out a game was cool because I always like seeing how people react when they get that last out. I was happy I got to see it with Yordani Monegro at one point this year. And you got the same kind of fire from Payton Tolle where he like gives the fist pump, he like twirls, he's yelling at his catcher. He's just real jacked up about the moment. And yeah, it's one of those things where they're such different players. It's to me, it's always just hard in general to judge a pitcher compared to a shortstop in this case when you're trying to talk about like who's the better prospect because they're just in completely different worlds. And it also doesn't help that like Arias is the younger guy. He's down a level. He's more of still like, oh, he's got all this stuff he has to prove. But like he's doing just about everything so well. He only has 4 home runs on the year. That's like the one thing. He's probably never going to be a massive home run guy, but it feels like everything else is there. But it also feels like at best, like best case scenario, Franklin Arias is making his major league debut like September of next year. And that is like a super best case scenario. He might
not if he was on the Angels.
Not if he's on the Angels. But like he might end the year in Double-A. And then at that point, like, then he starts next year in Double-A. And then within 2 months, he's in Triple-A. And then 2 months later, maybe he gets like that September call up. But like he's still not ready to make a major league impact. And Payton Tolle is. And that's not all that goes into it because it's not just like, oh, who can help the team now? But it's like there's still stuff he has to do to get ready to be in the majors. Whereas I really just think Payton Tolle's ready now. But there's still also so much he can improve on, which is just absolutely terrifying to think about. Like this is a guy who can probably produce in the major leagues right now to a decent degree. And he really doesn't even feel like he's like scratched the surface of what he can do. Because if he develops like the slider, the sinker, the cutter, whatever it is, the curveball, whatever he's working on to develop into another like tier 1A pitch, obviously nothing's going to be as good as his fastball. But if he can get something like near that level and maybe get 2 or 3 pitches, then like the tier 2, this is something ridiculously special.
I will just also throw like a little bit of caution out there, though, in terms of like, you don't necessarily want to fly pitchers through the system in terms of like, we have seen people like, I know Reed Detmer's had success early, but like as of recently, it's not been, the best experience for him with the Angels. But then again, you look at guys like Chris Sale and Garrett Crochet, who fly to the big leagues.
David Price.
I mean, Crochet.
David Price was up the year he got drafted.
That too. Yep. And all 3 of them have been with the Red Sox at one point or another, with Crochet currently being with them. But like Garrett Crochet didn't even play the game in the minor leagues because he got drafted in 2020, made his big league debut for the White Sox in 2020. There was no minor league season, made his debut out of the bullpen, and then he was in the bullpen obviously up until last year. Not that I think the Red Sox would put Tolle in the bullpen and then keep him in the bullpen for like 4 years because they wouldn't. But that does show like it is possible for a guy to be the year or the year after they're drafted or whatever it is. I mean, Paul Skeens, let's be honest, probably could have been in the big leagues the year he was drafted if he didn't throw so many innings at LSU. So obviously Paul Skeens was the number 1 pick. The reason, Paul Skeens was the number 1 pick. But I do throw out like the Reed Detmer's case just as like a little bit of a cautionary tale of like just because he can doesn't mean you want to rush him. But at the same time, yeah, Tolle's ceiling is absurd and his floor is just absurdly high as well. This isn't just the guy where it's like you might hit a home run, but you also might strike out. It feels like with Tolle, you might hit a home run, but at worst you're hitting a single or a double, right? Like that's kind of how I feel with Tolle. Whereas, as much as I love Frank, talk about him in a little bit, but he's still so young and still relatively early in his development. He's still in high A. Like you don't like the floor is not the same, right? I mean, also Arias is 19. That also plays a part in that, in the floor not being that high, right? It's like when we talk about Miguel Blaze, it's like Miguel Blaze hits, he might be a 5-tool all-star, but who knows? He hasn't even played, like, he could get a double-A and stall out, right? That's how prospects work sometimes, right? But yeah, Tolle could legitimately be something special, and if he becomes a legitimate starter, like he's the best Red Sox like success story in their pitching development since like when? Probably if there's a chance he could be better than Lester. So if you go even before Lester, then you're starting to you might be running into like pre-2000 if Tolle hits, which is absurd.
If Tolle stays in Double-A for the rest of the year, we will get a point this year with Payton Tolle and Luis Perales in the Portland rotation, and that's going to be really fun.
Please let that happen. I will say, like, again, it depends on the ceiling and how good a guy is. Like let's not forget, like, the Red Sox did develop Brian Bayo. They did develop Tanner Houck. They did develop Cutter Crawford. Like, these guys have, and I'm not saying, like, these guys are, obviously they gave Bayo an extension. He's going to be here for a while, and Houck was an all-star last year. We've seen how much he struggled this year, though. There has been some success in this, but I agree, like, the Red Sox haven't developed. The last time they developed a guy who you could call an ace was Lester, for sure. And before that, like, it's Clemens. Like, honestly, like, you'd have to go, but like in '86, the Red Sox had 4 homegrown guys in their rotation when they went to the World Series. But like that was, but they have, like, you really have to go back that far for like a number 1 pitcher. And apologies to Aaron Seeley and a few other guys who were pretty good pitchers.
This is 2013 Clay Buchholz erasure, and I won't stand for it.
Clay, I was about to say that.
There was a very good conversation between Spear and Kundal on the most recent Sox Prospects pod, where they talked about how Buchholz could just like he had so much of a deep arsenal. He could just he made up pitches and would just throw them. Like, when he was healthy and he was on and he had like his confidence, he was literally as good as any pitcher in baseball when he was
going to win the Cy Young that year. That's like
100%.
He came in like 5th or something 1 year other too, right?
Yeah.
Like 2016 something.
He had as
a couple
we
years
saw it.
before 2013.
He throws a no-hitter in what was it, like his
second
start in his career? Like, we saw it, how good he could have been, and it just between health and, like, I think there were confidence issues and other things too. Like, he just couldn't.
He finished 6th in Cy Young voting in 2010.
Couldn't sustain it.
2010.
Sucks.
And then he actually didn't get any Cy Young votes in 2013. He had a 1.74 ERA, and
didn't he like not pitch after the All-Star break or something?
No, he was supposed
no,
to.
he did. He got hurt like around.
He did get hurt, but my recollection was that there was like an outside chance he was going to come back in the playoffs, like in the World Series, as I recall. Like, I thought maybe he was like, if there had been I could be totally making this up, but if there had been a Game 7,
no, Buckles pitched in the 2013 postseason.
Okay, but you're right. But what I'm remembering is I'm pretty sure that if there had been a Game 7 in that series, I thought he would have pitched that Game 7.
I mean, might have, because
Lackey
pitched
Game 6.
So.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that Buckholz was lined up to pitch Game 7 if it got that far, but it didn't.
Getting that random like elite John Lackey season was insane.
It triggered his mutual. Remember that he had that conditional option.
Yeah,
he had like Tommy John, and he like pitched really well or whatever after it would trigger, and then they traded him.
He was like decent 2010, hot garbage 2011. He had a 6.41 ERA. And then hurt 2012, and then 2013 he has a 3.5.
He was amazing. He just was not a. He was not a personality fit in Boston. Let's be real.
No. I will just add on Buckles that year. He made 16 starts. He went 12-1, and his one loss was in his second to last start of the year, where he only gave up 2 earned and went 6 innings, but he had an unearned run, and the Red Sox lost 4-2.
Nuts.
So
crazy.
Basically, he got no run support.
Anyway, other pitchers in Worcester, or not Worcester,
Portland.
The only thing I had was Jack Anderson pitched well out of the bullpen. He had 3 innings, 2 hits, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk. But I did not really have. There was some rehab starts like Hunter Dobbins.
I know it's Double-A, but Tanner Houck and Hunter Dobbins both kind of shoved. So
yeah,
I mean, it's Double-A, but still, it's good to see, especially Tanner Houck. It's good to see him put together a good outing.
Maybe give him something positive.
Yeah. With Hunter Dobbins, it was that he went out there, struck out 8, gave up 1 run through 5 innings. He looked fantastic. But yeah, that was just that Tanner Houck needed something positive, and he got it. So hopefully that's something that gets him cooking a little bit.
Yeah,
I think he's making another rehab start.
Houck, probably.
I feel like that was like the report was.
Yeah, Houck is making another.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, I feel like the report was like Masataka's back this week. They want Houck to make another start.
That figures. I wouldn't be shocked if they hold Houck. I think they're holding Houck out until post All-Star break, which makes sense. Noah Song, 2 games out of the bullpen, 4 2/3. Did give up 5 hits in those 4 2/3, but just 1 unearned run and only 1 walk with 4 strikeouts. So Noah Song, I just hope he makes it to the big leagues. Like, he's been in the system for so long, and then the little Dombrowski Phillies escapade, and just no offense, I like Noah Song, but can we not talk about him on the show anymore? Can he just get to the big leagues so we know? And then we don't have to worry about the Rule 5 draft with him either, because, like, let's be honest, Dombrowski's going to take him again. You know, like, can't.
Yeah, I actually do think he's playing himself into getting drafted again if he's not on the 40-man.
It's ridiculous.
It's so absurd. It's actually absurd. And the Red Sox hate their homegrown relievers, apparently. Yeah. Ryan Fernandez, Ryan Zefferjohn. Good thing his name isn't Ryan. You know, the Red Sox would not be welcomed at the Colorado Rockies Ryan party. That's for sure. I feel like that was a little bit of a pull. 600 Ryans in attendance. Good for the Rockies. It's probably the biggest attendance they've had all year. Moving on. Let's take the trip to Greenville here. Let's take the trip to Greenville. And I do want to bring up Franklin Arias because I feel like it's been a little bit since we've talked about him. But this week he had 6 hits, 4 of them doubles, and 19 at-bats with 30 RBIs. No walks this week, only 2 strikeouts, though. I'll actually hand it over to you, Hunter. What are your thoughts on Arias this week? And like I said, he's been a little bit quieter as of late, but, I mean, he's still having an overall absurd season.
Yeah, this was, I think, a very important week for him because he was kind of in a semi-prolonged slump at this point. Obviously, like the first month of him in Greenville, he hit 404. It really seemed well. Technically, he went 0 He started 0 for 10, and then he hit like 430. So I think he was technically a little under 400 after the first month. But in the month of May, specifically, he was hitting 404. And then just like he hit 169 in June. And he never really looked overmatched. Like even in June, he had more walks than strikeouts. He had 7 walks compared to 6 strikeouts. But you could kind of see the weaknesses in his game where he wasn't. Sometimes he gets a little over aggressive, doesn't swing at a great pitch. It's a weak ground out. A decent amount of like fly balls dying close to the warning track, which is like where he needs to get a little bit more power comes from. But when he hits line drives, like that's where I think he's best, which it's not going to produce a ton of home runs. But if he's not hitting like those lofty balls that will end up dying, if he's just hitting a line drive, then when the line drive dies, it's probably dying in front of an outfielder for a single. And he can hit the ball very hard when he's hitting line drives. So this was just, he really needed a week like this. He didn't draw any walks, but he got hit by a pitch twice. He only struck out twice, 4 doubles. Like there were a lot of really big signs. He had a 3-hit game the last game of the week. He had 3 RBIs the first game of the week. So he was producing throughout the week. He had 4 of the 5 games he played in, he had a hit. So it was all there. They played, it was a split series. So they played the first 3 at Asheville and then the first 3 in Greenville, the next 3 at Asheville. We've talked about it before. 1, Asheville does not have a broadcast, which is infuriating. And 2, that is a very tiny ballpark. And
Trashville.
Yes, Trashville. It was nice to see. I mentioned this before the pod. No one that like had a big week for Greenville like had like 4 home runs. So it's not like we're like, oh well, it was a product of the stadium. No, Franklin Arias was getting hits. He was doing things that at any ballpark probably I'm assuming would have been hits. Obviously, we don't know because we didn't get to see those 2 games that he played there. But I mean, even before that, he had a couple hits when they were in Greenville, and he had some big hits there. So big week for Franklin Arias. Hopefully this is something that kind of gets him back on the right track. He's still hitting 287 in Greenville. He's still got a batting average over 300 on the year. So even with a really rough month, the numbers are still very positive. And yeah, I'm expecting more of this. Like 6 for 19 is a 316 batting average. I think we'll see a lot more weeks like that, a lot more weeks better than that. He really is that special with the bat. It is also important to remember that he is 19. He did start the year in single A. He didn't get to play a ton of single A last year. So him going through these growing pains, these struggles should be expected. It's not something to get super down on the prospect. I know obviously I was just saying how I might have Payton Tolle ahead of him. That in no way is an indictment of me thinking Franklin Arias is bad. That's just more me thinking Payton Tolle is that special. So just don't get down if you see Franklin Arias having those prolonged struggles. Like a month of struggles as a 19-year-old in high A isn't something to make me think, oh, this guy doesn't have it anymore. And it was good to see him kind of remind everyone that he is still a very special bat.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting to the point with Arias where it does feel like there's like a lot of efforts to, and it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but there's a lot of poking holes in kind of his game and what he does. And it's like, well, he doesn't have he doesn't do any one thing at like a super elite level. And it's like, well, but if you can do everything at a good level, then that means you have a path to the big leagues. I would say that the fact that he is has such a strong hit tool already at 19 years old, it says a lot about him and about his approach and his maturity that he is continuing to hit, high A pitching at that level. Even if the power is not there yet, he's 19. Like, I think it's he's still growing. He's not quite there yet. I think that he clearly can handle shortstop. And we've talked a lot recently about how certain guys move around or they play other positions. That hasn't been the case with Arias. I think he's played I'm looking right now. I think he's played like 5 games at second base this whole year, but he has not played second in a game at second base since May 18th. Like, they are committed to him playing shortstop and getting as good at it as he can possibly get, and that there might be a time in the future where he has to move off the position. But I don't think it's not what it looks like to me. He looks like a shortstop. So they're really committed to him there, and I think he's going to continue to get these opportunities. I do think it's a possibility that he gets to Double-A before the end of the year. It wouldn't shock me at all. So I would say, I think there are certain entities that it's their, they're looking at these guys and they're trying to figure out, like, what are they good at as a prospect, and maybe what are they not good at. But I do feel like I am seeing a lot of holes trying to be poked in what Franklin Arias is from people that I wouldn't necessarily expect. And I would just say, enjoy seeing a really good young prospect. Like, we don't really see this. It doesn't happen too often where a guy is 19 and goes up to high A and more than holds his own. So I'm excited to kind of see what he ends up being.
Yeah, I will also just add quickly on the whole Arias thing. Like, a shortstop who kind of does everything well, but maybe doesn't have the most, like, absurd standout tool, but, like, maybe could be a 15 and 20 homer guy. I said this, I feel like a month ago or so. Feels very Xander Bogaerts-y in terms of, like, Bogaerts had 420 homer seasons. One of those years was a 30 homer year, it was 33 homers. That was the juiced ball year in 2019. So in terms of, like, I mean, and Bogaerts was the franchise shortstop for almost a full decade, right? So, and obviously it's not a like-to-like comparison, obviously. But just in terms of, like, a general comparison where you have a shortstop who, like I said, doesn't maybe have the most, like, absurd standout tool in the toolbox, but does kind of a lot of things well, can't hit the ball hard, but, not necessarily going to be like Arias can hit the ball hard, but he's not necessarily going to be a, 30 homer guy. He might break 20 sometime, a few years, but he's most likely probably going to sit in the 15 and 20 range. Like I said, somewhat Xander Bogaerts-y. It's not, like I said, it's not a like-to-like comparison. I brought it up like a month or so ago on the show, but yeah, very much kind of has that Bogaerts-y feel in terms of, like I said, like, kind of just all around nothing just jumps off the paper, but all around does everything. Obviously, Bogaerts too is also 6'2". Franklin Arias is not 6'2". Franklin Arias was 6'2". He might be the number one prospect in baseball. I'm just saying. I'm not necessarily okay. I'm not. Maybe we'll track that. That might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but you get the point I'm making too, because everyone loves your tall players.
I've also seen the thing that you guys have both mentioned is people saying that, like, nothing jumps out about Franklin Arias. I'm kind of not agree. I don't really agree with that. Not you guys. Like, I've definitely seen people say that. I think he is a phenomenal defender at shortstop. Like, he's made a lot of plays this year that have, like, wowed me, and he seems just so composed out there. He makes all the routine plays too. And he's only 19. Like, this is something I think is going to continue to get better. I feel like he is a very above average defensive shortstop prospect. And I also think his hit tool is above average, and I think his speed is slightly above average. Like, I know slightly above average maybe isn't something that, like, jumps out at you, but I feel like that is, like Jake said, like, some people shockingly trying to poke holes in his game. And that's, like, it's a weird insult, is the whole, like, oh, he doesn't do anything great. I feel like that's something we heard about, like, Corey Seager in the past. Like, oh, he doesn't have one crazy tool. And it's something like with Marcelo Meyer that we heard a lot is, oh, there's not, and it's like that still makes for a very good prospect. But I do feel like there are certain points or certain parts of Franklin Arias' game that you could categorize as jumping out to you. So it's just, that's one of those things that I definitely don't agree with, that narrative that we've seen floating around at times. I think there are multiple things, because also you have to remember he's 19, he's in high A. The hope is that some of those things get better. So, like, I do believe there is very much a path where his hit tool and his defense are both well above average. So that's my little take on that one.
Yeah, I'll just kind of go back to the whole like Bogarts general comp. Bogarts was 19 in high A, so I just realized that now.
He was 19 in high A, and then he was 20 in the majors.
Yes, I'm not saying Franklin Arias is going to be in the majors at 20. I'm just saying it's kind of funny. Bogarts started in high A at 19. In his age 19 season, I'll just say that. Whereas Arias started in his age 19 season singly, but it's still impressive that he's in high A at 19. We should just kind of throw that in there. I also let's kind of talk a little bit about Johanfran Garcia here because obviously 7 for 17 this week. No extra base hits, but he still drove in 4 runs and also drew a walk. It feels like, Narvaez, obviously the big league level, has kind of, I guess, quieted the whole catcher concerns, I guess. But if you look, I feel like you still look throughout the organization. I mean, AAA is just MLB vets. It's Sebi Zavala and Blake Sable, and then Nathan Hickey, though, has been playing first base a decent amount this year, hasn't catching a ton. And then Portland, they do have Brooks Brannon, but they still have Ronald Rosario. But it's not like there's nothing like crazy there. Very much feels like Johanfran Garcia is kind of like their. It feels like he's their one like catching prospect that has a chance to be a legitimate prospect. And we saw how his brother kind of exploded last year. I'm not saying he's going to explode this year in terms of just because coming off the injury and like coming off an ACL injury is not like an easy thing to do. And it definitely, I feel like it'd be weird if a guy has that like kind of an injury and then just comes back immediately and just pops off the page. But I wouldn't. But I think we're back at the point where we can say Johanfran Garcia is the best catching prospect in the system. Definitely, because I can't think of anyone else who would be higher ranked than him. Off the top of my head, like I said, we could maybe try to argue like Brooks Brannon, but I know Sauce Process hasn't listed at first base on the Portland roster. So it's going to be. I think he's definitely It'll be interesting to see if they draft a catcher because, like I said, the catching still is kind of thin in the system, kind of. But it's he's at the point now he's definitely the guy in the minor leagues when it comes to the catching position. And I think he was up to like top like 16, 17, 18 on Sox prospects last year, if I remember correctly, off the top of my head. I know he's outside of the top 30 now. I know a lot of that has to do with the injury that he sustained last year, but I'm waiting for the Johanfran Garcia kind of just like, I don't want to say explosion or like kind of, but I know I have a feeling that it's in there that he's at, whether it's later this year or coming into next year, that he's going to just kind of turn some heads, because as much as we kind of have at least as much as the Red Sox fans have started like avoiding talking about the catching situation because of Carlos Narvaez. After Carlos Narvaez there's not a ton. There's really not a ton. And like Nathan Hickey's not catching. Blake Sable is Blake Sable. Sebi Zavala is Sebi Zavala, right? Brooks Brannon might play some catcher, but like also might be getting reps at first base now. So, the Sox process hasn't listed catcher first base now, which is definitely telling, I think. So, I think it'll be also too. I do think it'll be interesting. Obviously, I would assume Johanfran stays in. I almost said Salem, Greenville, the rest of the year. I would assume that's the plan for him, obviously, considering he didn't play a ton in Salem last year. I'm assuming the plan for him is to stay in Greenville the rest of the year, unless he obviously just turns it up like crazy. But I feel like I've been, like I said, I feel like I'm just waiting for that kind of explosion to come, to really kind of come. He's not having like a terrible year, but like I said, he's not like, he's got one extra base hit in 15 games. So like I feel like I'm waiting for it feels like it's building a little bit. Like you can see where it's going to come. You can see like he starts driving the ball, getting those extra base hits. I feel like that kind of explosion is going to come soon from him.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the extra base thing, the extra base hit issue right now. For one thing, Johanfran Garcia already wasn't the fastest man in the world. Coming back from this injury, the speed is a little bit more down even. Maybe he can build it back up to being below average instead of very below average, which is probably what you would have to classify it as right now. And also like a 286 slugging percentage, not great. 268 average, 369 on base percentage from a catcher in high A, I'd be thrilled about. And then you throw in the fact that he's only 20 and that he missed over a year of baseball with an injury, with a pretty devastating leg injury, knee injury. Like I think he's been phenomenal for what that is. Especially if you go back and look at the first few games he played, he was striking out a ton. It really just felt like the timing was off. He was at a level he'd never been at before. He missed a year of baseball. And it really feels like he's kind of getting all that together now. And you're seeing much more competitive at bats, hard hit balls. I think we'll start seeing a lot more power upcoming, but it was just good to see him have a big week and get the average and the on base percentage back up. I'm still very much in on Johanfran Garcia. I still think that, like you said, like there's not a ton of catching prospects in the system that people are going to get overly excited about. And he is the guy right now who has the biggest chance to become something special at the position. The defense has been good enough. I've been more than happy with what I've seen there. I think it's like, I just looked, it was like 33 steals and only 6 caught, which isn't a great number, but there's so many factors. I've talked about it before. I hate looking at that. I hate using that as an argument against the catcher in the minors because there's so many things that go into throwing someone out that are not the catcher's fault, especially at the lower levels. Like a lot of pitchers just aren't good at holding people on. It's something that Greenville has utilized a lot with like Miguel Blaze. He gets a lot of steals where it seems like the pitcher isn't even thinking about him and he's halfway to second base by the time he's even starting to throw the ball. So it's just, that's very much not on the catcher a lot of the time. And I thought that this was a very good week for Garcia. And I think that we're going to see a lot more of them. And I think we will start seeing the extra base hits start to fall in sooner rather than later.
Yeah. You guys have covered the ground a lot on Johanfran. I will just say that again, catcher, you're not supposed to draft for need, but in the minor league draft, but I really would be surprised if the Red Sox don't. It's like last year they did draft Hudson White. They should and need to draft some catching depth. Guys that could move into Greenville, possibly get up to, Portland by the end of this year, like that kind of thing. It would be amazing if that happened. And there are some options high up in the draft, so we'll see what they end up doing. Miguel Blaze hit a home run this week. I wanted to talk about him a little bit. He now has hit the same number of home runs, 11 this year in 62 games in Greenville that he did all of last year between Salem and Greenville in 95 games. I think that we've seen improvement this year with Blaze. We just haven't seen like a huge improvement. Like that's my take on his season so far, is that I think people are very down on him as a prospect. I think that there's good reason for that. I think there was this expectation that he was going to fly through the system when he was in FCL and that kind of thing. And he injures his shoulder. He misses like basically an entire season, like a huge chunk of his season. He comes back. Last year, you kind of give him a little bit of a mulligan, even though he was really good in Salem. He earned his promotion to Greenville. And then, Greenville, he just hasn't broken out. But I would just say that, like, I think if you look overall at his numbers, his batting average is higher than last season. His on-base percentage is higher than last season. His slugging percentage is significantly higher. On the season last year, he had a 354 slugging percentage. And in 52 games in Greenville last year, his slugging percentage was just 319. This year in 62 games, it's up to 433. Now, is that incredible? No, it's not incredible, but it's good. He has a 758 OPS so far this year. He's striking out a little bit more than he did last year on average. But I would just say that, like, I think that's maybe a little bit of a factor of that he's trying to drive the ball more. He's trying to hit the ball with more authority and hit more home runs. He's played, he's, like I said, he's played 62 games so far this year, 11 homers, 39 RBI. He had 11 homers, 47 RBI all of last year. He has 11 doubles this year. He had 16 all of last year. So I think there's good signs with Blaze. He's still only 21. He won't turn 22 until next year. It would be amazing if he just like was gangbusters the rest of the year and like maybe got himself into Portland at the very end of the year and then was like was in Portland all of next year. I could see a situation where if he just keeps even having the same year he's having this year, that they just decide, okay, like it's time for you to go to Portland, and that's where he goes to start next season. I just don't think we should don't lose faith in Miguel Blaze. Like, I just think that there's a lot there. There's a lot of talent there. And I think that the numbers have shown that he has made improvements this year. They're just not like, he's not lighting the world on fire.
They're not earth-shattering.
They're not earth-shattering improvements, but there's enough improvement to me, especially with just the way that he's hit the ball and driven the ball and hit for more power, that it is noticeable and it deserves to kind of be mentioned in a year where there's been other guys that have had better years that look better and that kind of thing. But him hitting a home run this week and equaling his home run total from last year, I just thought was notable and worth mentioning.
Yeah, unless either one of you guys wants to really go in detail on this, I'm not going to go super deep in on it, but Yophery Rodriguez, really important week for him. 6 hits, couple doubles, 2 walks, only 2 strikeouts, and a stolen base this week. I feel like that's really, really important because he's been struggling as of late.
Yeah, he's hitting 204 on the year with Greenville, which is obviously not great. He was in a very prolonged slump, but he's one of those guys watching him. I feel like he whenever he hits the ball, it's a hard line drive somewhere. 9 for 18 with 3 doubles during a 5-game hitting streak that he's on right now. And yeah, like the numbers still aren't great, but there's a lot to like about him. And it's something we've mentioned with a lot of guys. Very important to remember, he's 19 in high A. There's a ton for him to still grow and improve on. But like this is someone who is significantly younger than the competition. So it's not shocking that he didn't come over here where he was in single A last year, and now it's his first time in high A, and he gets traded. I don't want to say midway through the season, but right near the start of the season. And there's all these factors, all these things he's learning. He's probably got a whole different hitting program and all these other things in the Red Sox system than he had with the Brewers. And so obviously it's a short sample size right now. Either way you look at it, you could say this year has been a short sample size. You could say the 5-game hitting streak is a short sample size. But it feels like in recent weeks we've seen signs of him breaking out and starting to put things together. And I'm not saying all of a sudden he's going to become a 320 hitter. But I think that we're going to see him start to improve gradually week by week. So hopefully this was the start of some decent run for him. Because he is one of the more when he's on, he's one of the more entertaining players in the Greenville lineup.
Yeah, I will also add Will Turner had a homer this week, so don't want to forget about him. But I think it's a good time to kind of switch gears and move to the pitching side of things. And I want to actually start with the reliever. I want to kind of switch it up here, or at least somebody came out of the bullpen this week. Matt McShane, 3 innings out of the bullpen in his 1 appearance, no hits, no runs. No walks. He did hit a batter, but some could say that's more efficient pitch-wise. I don't know. I'm just saying, But 5 strikeouts is the big thing in those 3 innings, and he looked amazing. Also, too, just to note, he was acquired for Chase Shugart from the Pirates. So, as much as I feel like it would have been nice to see guys like Shugart and there's a bunch of other guys over the last few years, whether it's Shugart or even guys like Ryan Fitzgerald, who feels like it would be nice to have him with the Red Sox still, even if it's not necessarily immediate place for them. It's Brian Van Bell, even though he just left recently. Like there's some guys who you kind of fall in love with in the minor leagues. But Matt McShane has been very good this year, and it feels like the Red Sox definitely did get something for Shugart when a lot of the time a trade like that happens. It's just like, oh, they just got some guy, whoever it is, whatever, just some random pitcher, who cares, right? But he's actually had a good year so far. So I think that's the Red Sox The Red Sox did a good job in that kind of smaller kind of off-season deal. Nice little piece of business for the Red Sox that they were able to get out of that trade.
Okay, I'll go. John Hollabats. So we've talked about all the aspects of the Quinn Priester trade today between the pick, which was really the most important thing. Yophery Rodriguez having a good week, and John Hollabats, 5 innings, did give up 6 hits, 2 earned runs. They were both on home runs, so it wasn't like he was giving up, a ton of traffic on the bases necessarily. But the big thing, obviously, 8 strikeouts in 5 innings and 0 walks. I love what he brings to the mound. He has that really intense kind of delivery and the fall off the mound, and I'm a big fan of what he can do. I think that I feel like we're still going to see movement in terms of promotions and guys moving up and that kind of thing. I don't know. Hollabats did start the year in low A with the Brewers, so I don't know that they would push him all the way up to Double A this year. But like, he's got really good stuff, and I'm excited. I think that he's overall been very impressive. I think he's definitely someone that's benefited from, not that, I mean, the Brewers have a great pitching system as well. Like they turn out pitchers all the time, but like, I think he's somebody that maybe had benefited from coming here and what the Red Sox have teaching him and showing him to do. And again, that's a guy that I believe was just drafted last year too. Right. So, and then I'll save Derek from having to pronounce it. Chase Sprague had 7 strikeouts, 1 walk in his outing. Some issues with contact, but 4 2/3 innings, pretty good outing for him. And then the only other pitcher I had anything on was Jacob Webb, pitching out of the bullpen, 2 hits, 2 walks, but 6 strikeouts in 4 innings for him. So a guy that we haven't really talked about that much. He's a pretty talented guy.
For me, Brandon Clark was the big one I wanted to talk about. 2 2/3 scoreless innings, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk, gave up 1 hit. It was his second appearance since coming back off the IL. He missed like a month with, I believe it was like a hangnail that turned into a blister. 1.88 ERA, 0.082 batting average against, 0.7 whip in 9 starts between single A and high A. He's got 45 strikeouts compared to just 12 walks and 28 2/3 innings. It's been really fun to get him back on the mound and just get to watch him again. He's one of the more entertaining pitchers to watch. He's one of the more dominant pitchers in the system, and it's just really good to see him return from missing a month of obviously in-game working. Probably hurts the development a little bit, like short-term development. It's not going to be something that we'll be talking about in 3 years, like, oh, well, that month he missed in his first year. But it's been great to see him miss that time and come back and not skip a single beat. Like, he's looked just as good as before. He's obviously not pitching as deep into games. But even before the injury, they had him on a pretty significant pitch count. Like, it seemed like he was usually at like 50, 60 pitches. So I feel like this will be something that they slowly bring back in, because they were kind of treating him with kid gloves in the first place. So I think, and I mean, that could also just be, it was the beginning of the season and they wanted to ramp things up. But if he gets to a point where he's getting 80 pitches a game by the end of the year, I think we'll see some just ridiculous Brandon Clark starts.
I will just talk a little bit on Blake Aida, just for the sake of, he didn't have like the best start. 5 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned. Did give up a homer. Struck out 6, but he did walk 4. But if that's kind of a rough start for him, I mean, we've seen him have some really good starts this year. So like but like, if that's your rough start, it's like, what's a really good start going to look like for you? Obviously, we've seen him have really good starts this year. So we do know what the really good ones can and have looked like. But for that to be kind of one of the starts where it wasn't really his greatest outing, he walks 4, gives up 3 hits, right? Gave up a homer, but you still get through 5, only give up 2 runs. I feel like if that's, like I said, if that's your bad start, I feel okay with that. You're, in my personal opinion too, this is a gripe I have. If you go 5 innings and you give up 2 runs, it should be considered a quality start. That's just not, like, the 6th inning thing is kind of stupid now, because how many pitchers even go 6 innings in the first place? Not a ton. To me, if you go 5 innings and only give up 2 runs, it's better than going 6 and giving up 3.
My issue is, where does that end then? Then if you change that, then people are going to be like, oh, 4 innings and 1 run is better than 5 innings and 2. And then it's 3 innings and no runs.
Because you're not eligible for a win. You have to be eligible.
Yeah, well, that's the qualifier for getting to 5 innings.
Yeah, no, I know, but that's
the qualifier for a quality start is 6 innings.
Yeah, but still, to me, if you go 5 innings and you only give up 2 runs, like, I still feel that's good enough. Now,
it's good enough for a win, but is it a quality start? I don't know.
To me, it is.
The part that I would say it should be 6 innings and 2 runs. I think 6 innings and 3 runs is not. I don't think that should be.
That's a 4.50 ERA.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So, but like we're talking about these things, and it's like there's so many, like some guy 100 years ago, 150 years ago, decided that the only way that a starting pitcher could get a win is if he threw 5 innings, but a reliever could come in and face one batter and get a win. Like that's why wins are stupid. It's why the dumbest stat.
I will real quick argue, if you give up 2 runs in 5 innings, that's a 3.6 ERA.
That's better.
That's better than a 6 innings, 3 runs, which is a 4.50 ERA. It's almost a run better.
We shouldn't be incentivizing starters to go. Not that it's up to them, but we should be incentivizing them to go deeper in games in ways.
Well, true. That's why
discussion.
5 innings, 3 runs isn't a quality start. 5 innings,
or should it be?
Runs should be. 5 innings and 2 runs should be.
You might be able to convince me. I think that in order to be a quality start, you got to go.
I am unmoved.
Well, my argument is if 6 and 3 is a quality start, 5 and 2 should be. If you get rid of the 6 and 3, then 5 and 2 shouldn't. But then it should be 6 and 2, and then 7 innings or more, 3 or less. But the 6 and 3 is the reason it's stupid.
It's also such an arbitrary stat.
Like, it's all arbitrary.
It is all arbitrary, but it's not like teams are like, oh, this guy made 7 quality starts last year.
Well, I mean, remember when Framber Valdez made like 50 million quality starts in a row? Like
exactly, and no one cared.
Yeah. No, I know, but like, I mean, it can be kind of like, oh, this guy's consistent.
Why does it? But there's so many stupid things. It's like what, like baseball. The rules are just like the scoring rules just don't make yes. you get an RBI for getting, like, if the bases are loaded, you get hit with a pitch or you walk, you get an RBI for that with the bases loaded. But if there's nobody out and I ground into a double play and there's 2 outs and a run scores from third, I don't get an RBI even though I hit the ball in play,
which is stupid.
It is. There's so many things like I don't know.
Yeah,
who
go
to hell, Abner Doubleday.
You don't deserve an RBI if you recorded 2 outs in a play.
But you hit the ball, like you hit the ball.
Okay,
though. You batted
if you drive
the ball.
in the game, if you drive in the game-winning run on a double play, I'm not saying it's a walk-off, but like,
but they would throw home though.
Yeah, they're not.
No. I'm not saying it's a walk-off, but like, let's say it's the top of the 9th, or let's say it's the 8th.
Still probably throwing home.
Still probably throwing home.
Well, but I'm just hypothetical.
You're saying if it's the game win, like, let's say it's the first inning and that's the only run of the game that scores. Is that what you're saying?
Or
my
that even
my thing is bases loaded, no outs.
Yeah.
Someone comes up and grounds into a double play, but the run scores. Are you happy with that at bat, or are you like, what the hell was that?
Depends if it's a close game or not.
It's funny because this exact thing happened with Connor Wong, right? Like, he doesn't
and everyone was mad at him because that's a bad at bat. That's a bad end to the at bat.
I'm just saying that, like, in order to getting a run batted in, you should have to bat the run in. You should not.
You don't think a walk with the bases loaded? Be an RBI.
I think more that than a hit by pitch. Like, I think if you get hit by a pitch with the bases loaded, you should not get an RBI. That's my
because you don't get an RBI.
Like, a walk is fine. I'll allow that, but
you don't get an RBI for a wild pitch. So like,
right, exactly. Well, I mean that's
but hit by pitch is a wild pitch that just happens to hit you.
Yeah, you just happen to be in the way of the ball.
I also
you're supposed to get out of the way too. Like,
if you get hit by a pitch with 3 balls, I think it should be a walk. Because if I'm a hitter, I'd rather have a walk on my.
I have a gripe to pick about this. College World Series, 3-2 count. The batter doesn't get out of the way, but the pitch is clearly a ball and it hits his elbow guard. Right, he takes first. On review, they say the batter didn't move out of the way. So instead of it, if the ball didn't hit him, it would have been ball 4 anyway. So it was clearly a ball. But because he didn't move out of the way enough, they called it a strike. They overturned it to a strike, and he got struck. He struck out on a ball that was like at least 3 to 4 inches off the plate.
That's no good.
That's absurd. I'm small gripe on that. Maybe more than a small gripe, but No, back to Blake Aida. To me,
back to the Red Sox minor league system.
Quite a tangent. That was amazing.
Back to Blake Aida. To me, it's still like at least to me, it's a quality start in terms of like if you're in a game and you go 5 innings and you only give up 2 runs, you're giving your team a chance to win. And although, yeah, he clearly did not have the best performance, he walked 4 and 5 innings. Clearly not his best performance. It was still a solid start that. You only give up 2 runs, you're still giving your team a chance to win. So, I that's somewhat, I feel like that's a good thing to, even in your not great start, you still pitch well.
Yeah.
So, with that, have anything else in the Greenville pitchers before we go on any more tangents somehow?
No, let's keep it moving here.
All right, Salem hitters. We have another player of the week. Whoever wants to take it can take it, but Justin Gonzales is a maniac.
Go ahead, Hunter. This is all you.
My God. I think Justin Gonzales hit a baseball 5,000 feet this week. And I think Jake said it, like, this is what we've been waiting for.
Because this was his second home run, right?
Yeah.
Like, he had another one in Salem. But it was a poke. Like, it was like kind of more of an opposite field home run. This was the, like, pulling it, hitting it 8,000 feet, like, going, like, go ahead. This is what we were waiting for.
And I think my favorite part about the video about the home run is he is getting booed as he goes back into the dugout because it is an away game, and the announcers were not happy with him because he had a very high bat flip that apparently almost hit, I'm assuming, the catcher, which just like, get out of the way. I don't know what to tell you.
Boo-hoo, bitch.
If you're going to give up a 5,000 foot home run, expect a 5,000 foot bat flip. And then the funny part, though, is if you go watch the video, like 13 seconds after the video started, like he hit the home run, you're like 13 seconds into the video, and they pan back to Justin Gonzales, and he's like not even at first base yet. He's like just starting to hit first base. He had a hell of a time. He was so excited. He was so happy. He's doing every single possible thing you could do while rounding the bases. But just, yeah, this was, and he didn't only do that this week. 8 for 20, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, had 3 doubles, had the ridiculous home run, stole 2 bases on 2 attempts. But just this home run really felt like a moment for Justin Gonzales. This was like people have been hyping him up since last year. People have been excited about him. And now we have like the highlight for Justin Gonzales. Like, here's the thing to show people who are like, oh, everyone's talking about this 900-foot man, but I haven't seen anything from him. Here you go. Here's Justin Gonzales hitting a ridiculous home run. And even before the home run, like we've talked about it the last few weeks, I've been impressed with Justin Gonzales. He draws a ton of walks. He's hit the ball hard pretty often. There's been quite a few hits that probably should have been home runs that one got brought back because of the wind. Salem's ballpark has taken away a few. But we're seeing all the good development, and then this was us getting to see the power. This was us getting to see the main event of what Justin Gonzales is. And I really feel like we've seen the last few weeks him really figuring out single A, and this felt like he's here now. Like, this was a massive week for Justin Gonzales, 400 batting average, as many walks as strikeouts, the ridiculous home runs, stealing bases. I think we're going to be talking about Justin Gonzales a lot moving forward, and I think that this is far from the last time he's winning Player of the Week.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that the reason why the bat flip almost hit the catcher was because he threw it way up high in the air and it almost landed on him. Like, give me a break. Like get out of the way. Like, what are you doing? Like, I thought it was like a situation where he like threw the bat up and the catcher was standing right there and almost hit him as he was doing. Like, that's what I thought happened. But now that you're saying it, like, I didn't, because like there was not really a good angle or a good any kind of good video of what exactly happened there that triggered like the fans to be so upset. But I mean, like, yeah, the guy is a monster. I think maybe like you said, Hunter, after him coming up, maybe some bad luck running into some situations in the ballpark in Salem, but the weather's heating up and it seems like he's heating up, in kind, with between, obviously having an 8 for 20 week, 3 doubles, 4 RBIs and that gargantuan massive home run. he's a reason to watch the games, to watch Salem. And I am just so happy that we have that highlight of him just letting loose on one. You said, Hunter, I don't know if you mentioned this, but you did get like what the exit velo on that, wasn't it? It was like 109 or something.
I think it was 109.3. Hold on, I can pull it up.
Man,
a lot of people.
While Hunter's pulling it up, I'll just say that
109.3, 29 launch angle, 29 degree.
He reminds me of the I am 12 meme from Benchwarmers. Except he's like younger than a very large amount of players in Salem.
Anyway, just in terms of the other hitters, I just had home runs this week for Andy Azakar, who again is continuing to put up, it sounds like pretty good peripheral numbers, and Claver Salazar, and then Kareem Ayubi was 5 for 11. So I don't have a lot else on the hitters there.
I will just add quickly on just Justin Gonzales. I was looking up for the I am 12 meme. I don't know why I was just looking for it, and underneath it, I saw a picture of a kid from Texas playing 12U football. He's 12 years old, and he's got tattoos and a mustache, and he's got this.
I've seen that guy.
Football.
I've seen that guy. Kid, I guess.
Oh my god!
I'm like, whoa, Justin Gonzales is that, except like he's only 8. He's 18 compared to other people in Salem who are older, and just he makes them look very small. Also, we're talking about people not being able to hit their weight and batting average. Nathaniel Uten will always hit over his weight and batting average. So shout out Nathaniel Uten. That insult will never work against him. I just thought about that earlier.
If it does, he probably shouldn't be playing baseball anymore. But yeah, he had a good week. 5 for 17, 2 doubles, 2 triples. He hit both the triples in the same game, which was interesting. I think he's up to 5 this year. He's hitting 260, 318 on base, 422 slugging. Yeah, 12 doubles, 5 triples, 3 homers. He's been a very good bat for them. He struggled for like the first month, and he's been phenomenal since then. And then just on Andy Azakar, he went 0 for 10 in the first 3 games of the week, and then he went 4 for 9 with a double, a homer, and a walk in the last 2. So that was a good turnaround for him. And like Jake said, the peripherals are apparently very good. The overall numbers at the moment aren't great, but he is younger than Justin Gonzales. So it's not shocking that he isn't lighting the world on fire. And he is someone who passes the eye test much more than the box score at the moment.
I will just add, I don't know if we mentioned it. So if we did, sorry, because I don't think we mentioned it. Justin Gonzales stole 2 bases this week as well.
I don't think I mentioned that, but yeah, he certainly earned the Carolina League Player of the Week honors.
Yeah, we're going to move on to pitching then.
Sure.
Take it away, Jake.
Another good Devin Futrell start. Like he's had a couple weeks in a row here. 4 innings, 2 hits, 0 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. Again, we're seeing some of these guys who were drafted last year, and maybe either they had injuries or there's just like so many mouths to feed there that it's hard. It's hard to get everybody their opportunity. But Devin Futrell was somebody who I think he came out of Vanderbilt last year, so obviously a pretty strong pedigree and a guy that kind of needs that opportunity, and it's good to see him get it. Another guy that they drafted last year out of college in that sort of 10 to 20 range last year was Griffin Kylander, who I don't really think we've talked about him much at all. He had a good outing, 4 innings, 2 hits, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. No earned runs. I mean, it was a good week overall for those guys. I mentioned, I wanted to mention also Luis Cohen, not necessarily like the greatest start, but he only gave up 1 run in 6 innings. So some good outings over the course of the week for the Salem pitchers, while the guys on offense were cooking on the other side.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but wasn't it like 1 run on 2 hits in 6 innings, but he only struck out 1 batter?
I think it was, it was a lot of contact. It was a lot of contact, but it didn't kill him, obviously.
The big one I have this week, PJ Labriola, 3 scoreless innings over 2 appearances, 1 hit, no walks, struck out 3 batters. He has thrown 6 2/3 innings in Salem. He's only allowed 1 run on 5 hits. He struck out 6 batters. Still hasn't walked anyone, which is awesome. Undrafted guy. 6'7", massive human being. We were talking about that earlier when we were talking about the draft. The Red Sox seem to love the monster human beings. So yeah, just a very good start in Salem for him so far. He's 24 years old, so old for the level, but maybe that's something he moves up quickly. He went to North Carolina State, so he is a college guy. So maybe if he dominates for a couple weeks, we see him in Greenville soon.
Yeah, I don't really have anything on the pitching. I just feel like we haven't talked about Luis Cohen at all this year, and he put up 6 innings. So shout out Luis Cohen.
We just
I know, but I'm literally, but I bring him up because we haven't talked about him this year.
Okay.
And like he had a good start this week, but it's been, I don't know, it feels like it's been a weird year for him because obviously the pitching talent in the system's been, really good, and he's been overshadowed, right? But last year at a 3.40 ERA, this year he's got a 3.56 ERA in Salem. He is 21 years old, so it makes it interesting because it's like, okay, you're 21,
he's 22. That's okay.
Sauce Prospect hasn't updated his age then.
He has my birthday, May 26th.
Hey.
So Sauce Prospect, it says May 26, 2003, but it still says 21. So,
guys, come on.
We're going to find all the tiny
slackers.
Little But no, I do want to kind of go a little bit more kind of on Luis Cohen because last year, 98 innings in Salem with a 3.40 ERA. This year, he's pitched 60 and 2/3 innings with a 3.56 ERA. He's closing in on 160 innings in Salem. But like I said, he's not, like you said, now he's 22 now, right? Either he's got to get up to Greenville at some point, or he might be looking at being an organizational cut, unfortunately. Just considering on how the draft goes and how many spots they're going to need, it kind of sucks because he hasn't been bad, right? Like that's the thing. He's like, if you just look at the numbers, like 3.40 ERA this year, 3.50 last year, 3.56 this year. His velo's kind of ticked up a little bit over the years, but 93 to 95 isn't like absurd or anything, right? So you kind of wonder, considering he pitched so much in Salem last year, he's pitched so much this year. Either call up to Greenville's got to happen soon, or what do they do with him?
It's not the end all be all or anything,
yes.
But I think this start is kind of the highlight of what the issue is. He just doesn't strike people out.
Exactly.
He had 77 strikeouts in 98 innings last year. He's got 48 and 60 and 2/3 this year. Like it's not, you don't need to strike people out to be successful, but it damn sure doesn't hurt to strike people out. And
also,
if you're not doing it in single A, like that's something that you need to significantly improve on.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'll say, like, yeah, we're getting, with the draft coming up, like domestic reserve list is going to start to become,
it's already
more. Yeah. And so you're going to start to see guys you're going to start to see guys get cut. Like you're going to start to see guys get moved on from, or maybe guys that they've been waiting to put on the full season IL for whatever reason, like they will do it, like, because there's going to be at least 20 new guys in the organization, plus possibly a couple of undrafted free agent signings. So maybe 22 to 24 probably spots that they're going to need for these guys. And it used to be that you could, if you sign them, but you didn't assign them to a team, you didn't have to use up the domestic reserve list spots on that. They closed that loophole in probably either the most recent or the CBA or the CBA before that, which is, I think, is a good thing, but it's in a way, but it's also a bad thing because it means guys are going to lose their jobs. So be on the lookout for probably when we have our show next week, we will probably be talking about some transactions, is my guess.
Yeah. It's also kind of sad too, because at one point last year it was, you kind of looked at the Salem pitching staff and like, there was like hope, and one of those guys who had that hope of like, oh, let's see what he can do in Salem was Luis Cohen. And now he's kind of an overager. I mean, he's a little bit, just very slightly above the average age in Salem. So, I mean, does suck a little bit. But, he 23 games there last year and 22 starts is kind of a, you had him, you had ERC there. Shout out ERC. And it's just, I feel like Cohen's, like I said, he's at that point now where it's like, I feel like it's like, okay, are we going to get him to Greenville, or is he just going to die? Pretty much. He's going to be left in Salem to die, pretty much, unfortunately. Maybe that's a very rough term or way of putting it, but yeah, he's 22. He's not striking people out in Salem. When you get higher up the minor leagues, if you're not striking out people in Salem, or you're going to strike people out, hey, he could be an anomaly. Who knows? Maybe somehow he gets moved up to Greenville as a, here you go, like, can you do it in Greenville, right? And maybe he can pitch around and avoid, maybe doesn't strike out some people. Maybe he can still pitch well, and then who knows? Maybe he ends up being an outlier, but odds are you're not striking out people in Salem. It's going to be very difficult to do it any higher up the minor leagues. It's only going to get more difficult. So, but I'm hoping Luis Cohen gets the move up to Greenville just so we at least can see it in Greenville. That's what I'm hoping, at the very least. But that's kind of all I have on the pitching side of things. So, with that, as we're getting to Worcester, I do just quickly want to shout out Nate Eaton. I know he's not with Worcester, but he's now, I guess, the Red Sox leadoff hitter against left-handed pitching, it seems.
For now.
Which is, for now, but still, like, this is, 3 games in a row, which is...
He hasn't been bad at it.
No, he hasn't been. And, I mean, the thing is, I think if you told someone that, yeah, there'd be 3 consecutive games in July where Nate Eaton is the Red Sox leadoff hitter, I think people would be like, what the hell went wrong? And who the hell is Nate Eaton? If you would have told them that in, like, February. But hey, he's been good. So shout out Nate Eaton.
I have been successfully, obviously, I guess it's not successful if I'm going to talk about it. I've been successfully holding my tongue on Twitter recently so much, especially with like the Cedar Rafaela stuff. And I've been so proud of myself. Obviously, I shouldn't be hyping myself up right now. And I'm talking about it now, but just the takes that people had a month ago. And obviously he was struggling at the time. But it was ridiculous to me to see people completely turning on a 24-year-old all-world defender because he was struggling to hit it out of the 9-hole. And it's been nice to see everybody hyping him up now, but it's also frustrating sometimes to see some people pretend like they have like he is the greatest player of all time now. So it's been frustrating, but it's really nice to see the Red Sox suddenly kind of have a decent right-handed lineup. Like Trevor Story's been on fire. Cedar Rafaela's been on fire. Romy Gonzales has been awesome. Nate Eaton's been good out of the leadoff spot. Like they have much better balance without Alex Bregman right now than they have any reason to have. And they're getting Alex Bregman back soon, hopefully.
Which will probably mean Nate Eaton goes back to Worcester.
Yes.
But will almost certainly mean that. But it's been nice to see. But
when's David Hamilton's time? Come on.
I want David Hamilton on the MLB roster. That is my official position.
Oh, but he's also a left-handed.
If they don't make a trade, though, I think he might get sent down.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see
because with Yoshida too, they're going to
have the Yoshida thing, and
they need to make a trade. They can't have this many outfielders. They need to make a trade.
Yeah.
They have 17 outfielders.
My hot take is Nate Eaton's way more versatile, so he should be on the MLB roster. Also, too, it's Nate Eaton. Who doesn't love some Nate?
I think it comes down to the manager. I think the manager would rather have Hamilton on the roster.
Well, I think that's a given.
So Worcester,
yes.
It's a bit of a I don't want to say this, like there's just not a lot of prospects in Worcester right now. Like there's Blaze Jordan, and there's obviously there's intrigue and interest with what's going on with Christian Campbell. But like this week, Vaughn Grissom had a really good week, 7 for 18, hit a home run. Philip Sykes, friend of the show, hit a home run also. We love it when he does well. Carson Seamus, and guys, Trace Thompson, Sebi Zavala, not really, like guys they're not prospects, that's for sure. I think that getting back to the thing about like the sporadic somewhat usage of Christian Campbell. I mean, he had a really tough week. He had 4 for 25 with 13 strikeouts and 1 walk. I just want to see him get into a good rhythm, like whatever that is, whether it's playing every day. You're not going to have, Masa Yoshida being there rehabbing, and, it doesn't even seem like Alex Bregman is going to go on a rehab assignment. So at least he can avoid that. But like, just get his bat in the lineup every day. I still definitely think they need to sort of stick with him at one spot. And hopefully he can sort of continue to kind of work things out a little bit. But him striking out in half of his at bats this past week was not really great to see. But this is why it's why he's there. I guess he's trying to work through stuff. But that's all that I really had on the hitters.
Like you said with Sykes, he hit a home run this week. He was 1 for 4 with 2 walks and the homer. He's struggled this year. He's got a 165 average. I'd love to see him get some more consistent ABs because I think that he's much better than a 165 average. I'm not saying he's a 300 hitter, but I think he's a much better bat than he's played to this year. It's just really hard to get into a rhythm when you're playing 2 times a week. He had played 2 games this week. He went 0 for 2 and 1 for 2 with a walk in each game, I think it was. And then Blaze Jordan went 4 for 19 with a double, 2 RBIs this week. The big one I had, though, was Corey Rozier, 5 for 16, 2 doubles, 4 RBI. Drew 4 walks, 259 average, 356 on base between AA and AAA this year. He's got a 443 slugging, 13 doubles, 7 homers. That's a little shocking. He's always been very much a slap hitter. A big thing, he had a breakout year 2 years ago with Portland. He hit over 300, and it was like a lot of bunt singles, small like slow rollers to second, sometimes even just like a ground ball to the pitcher that he was just beating out. So it's good to see him adding a little bit of power to his swing. 11 steals, like the speed's still there. He's just a very interesting depth piece to me because, like I said, I do think they'll be making a trade to clear up a outfield roster spot. So then when that happens, if a couple injuries occur or something happens, whatever it is, there's a very, very outside chance that at some point Corey Rozier is on the major league roster this year. Again, if a trade happens and if there are multiple injuries, but still. And it's nice to feel much more comfortable about it than I would have at the end of last year. Like he seems like a viable major league depth guy at this point, which is just fantastic. So it was just another really good week for him. It feels like he's had a decent amount of those recently.
Yeah, I don't really have much on the hitting side of Worcester. I pretty much had like Philip Sykes hit a homer, yay! Like Carson Siemens hit a homer, yay! Like Vaughn Grissom had a nice week, but like, what does that really mean? I don't know. That's pretty much all I had. So, I'm gonna move on to the pitching side of things here, because Robert Stock, 5 2/3 innings, only given 5 hits, but just the 1 unearned run, 1 walk to 6 strikeouts. Stock obviously has had a couple runs with the big league team this year, but now he's in his he's back in Worcester as the kind of MLB depth as needed. Although with the amount of pitchers the Red Sox might be getting healthy, he's probably going to get pushed down the quote unquote depth chart, I guess you could say. But it's nice to know that he's there in case the Red Sox need him. So for him to have a good start is always nice. And then I also want to touch on Giovanni Moran because they acquired him from the Twins this past offseason, 3 1/3 innings in 2 games this week. Only gave up 1 hit, no runs, just 1 walk and 4 strikeouts. Lefty reliever could be important for the Red Sox. You kind of look at the Red Sox bullpen right now. Chapman, to me, isn't really in that kind of lefty mix because he's the closer right now. And also there have been trade rumors. But after that, Justin Wilson, he's old. If the Red Sox sell the deadline, he probably goes. Bernardino is just – I feel like he's pitched in like every other game this season. It's just – I don't know. I feel like he's just pitched way too much. And that's not a knock on him. That's just more of a – feels like he's been used so much over the last couple of years. And then it's Chris Murphy, who just got healthy recently and just like back in the big leagues being healthy. So
he's looked fantastic though.
And he has. He absolutely has. It's just Like there's not a ton of, like I said, it's Chapman and Wilson who could both be traded at the deadline. Bernardino, who like I said, I feel like he gets used every other game. I feel like I've seen Bernardino pitch so many times this year, between this year and last year. I feel like last year also overlaps into my memory of this year because he was used a lot last year as well. But like you do wonder like how much he's been used. It's like does he kind of maybe fade, or you always get concerned about relievers and injuries, or that can always be a little bit of a concern. So Giovanni Moran's gonna, if he continues to pitch like he did this week, he's going to have a very interesting case to be a bullpen piece for the Red Sox. And we've seen him have success before in the big league, so it wouldn't be anything new.
Yeah. Just wanted to bring up Kyle Harrison, who made his second start. I watched a good chunk of it. Again, I think it's like a couple starts in a row where I think the final line doesn't look great, but I thought that he did like okay. Not amazing. He gave up 2 home runs. One was to Francisco Alvarez, who it was, obviously the Mets optioned him to the minors, but he was top prospect, before he went up to the Mets, and still a great hitter or has a really good pedigree, obviously. And the other home run was to Pablo Reyes, who, of course, it's a big leaguer. I think there is something there with the cutter. Like they're working on it with him. They're trying to make it a pitch that is, and he's gotten some swing and miss on it, like in what he's done so far. It's a new pitch, obviously, for him. He's working on it. The command just is not there. And I think that, like, I know a lot of people thought, like, okay, they get an extra year of service if they keep him down after July 4th. I think that just he's going to need more time. And the rotation in the big leagues right now is not hurting necessarily. Even if they did decide to, Walker Buehler had a good start over the weekend, and he's not. I don't think he's necessarily in danger of being out of the rotation or anything. They can afford to let Kyle Harrison work through stuff in the big league so that he becomes more of a finished product. He's there now, or in the minor leagues, so that he becomes more of this finished product that they can use in the big leagues. I thought that he looked okay. I think, he gave up a few hits. His final line doesn't look amazing. It was 4 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned runs. Again, he gave up two home runs. So 2 of those runs came on home runs. And 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. So you did give up some contact, but it wasn't as bad as the final line looked. And I think that they're gonna continue to work with him and get him in the right spot so that he can contribute in the big leagues, hopefully at some point this year.
I completely agree with you. This is the second straight start where he pitched better than the stat line, but it's not like he pitched great. Like it's not like it's he was really good, you just didn't see it. It was fine. And he's given up 3 home runs in the 2 starts, all of them to guys that have been in the majors. Pablo Reyes kind of destroyed Worcester this week. He went 6 for 16. That's a 375 average, 500 on base, 813 slugging. He had a double and 2 homers, 3 walks to just 1 strikeout. This was very much a Pablo Reyes revenge tour for the Mets, which is great for them because I feel like Syracuse, every year that Worcester plays Syracuse, the Syracuse Mets announcers are terrified of some hitter on the team. It was Cedar Rafaela 2 years ago where they were just like, this guy absolutely humiliates us every time. Then they had to deal with like Roman Anthony. They had to deal with Marcelo Meyer. Kyle Teal had a ridiculous week against them at one point. Like I think he had like a top of the 9th grand slam to give the Woo Sox the lead. And then the very next night he hit a top of the 9th 3-run homer to tie the game. So they've just, every year it seems like they're terrified of someone. So at least this year they got to revel in one of their guys destroying the Red Sox, and it just so happened to be a former Red Sox legend, Pablo Reyes. But yeah, Kyle Harrison, he was fine. Very much just parroting what Jake said, where he's working on things, and it's going to be a struggle. I know a lot of people wanted him to get called up as the 27th man for the doubleheader. It was the right call not to have him do it. They're working on things that would very much disrupt the improvements that he's trying to make, because they wouldn't have had him come up, pitch a game in the majors and be like, okay, this game, we want you to throw those pitches that you don't throw. Like they're going to have him in the minors for a couple more starts to figure these things out. As frustrating as that is going to be for fans to hear, but I don't think we should be expecting Kyle Harrison to be in the rotation this week.
Jake, you got anything else?
Nope.
All right. I feel like it's perfect time now for maybe Jake's typical favorite segment, FCL and the FCL and DSL minute. Jake, take us away.
I love all the segments. Avinson Pinto is a guy that I think was like a more of a higher draft pick and a higher bonus signee. And he had a good week this week, 5 hits, 18 at bats, with a double and an RBI. There were home runs this week for Justin Berry and Alexander Maybell. Denison Sanchez, I think, is the name we've mentioned a few times. 3 1/3 innings out of the bullpen, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, no runs or hits. And I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that, coming into the season, I think one of the guys we were most excited about on the pitching side was Delvinson Reyes, who is still a ranked prospect, big guy, a lot you can dream on with the body. He's had a tough go of it for the most part. But this week he had a 2-inning start in which he had 3 strikeouts, no walks, no hits, no runs. So maybe he's going to start to build some momentum and kind of get back into it a little bit so we can be excited about what he can be. And then DSL, I just had a couple, like Christopher Cordero, 4-inning start. He did have 4 walks, but he had 5 strikeouts, no hits, no runs. And then I just wanted to mention Franklin Primera, one of the hitters in DSL. He's off to a pretty good start this year. He has a 333 average, a 455 on-base percentage, and 6 doubles so far for one of the DSL teams. I didn't write down if he was on the red team or the blue team, but one of those teams, he's done pretty well. So that's all I got.
I just have 2. Jose Bayo, the pitcher the Red Sox got back for, one of the pitchers the Red Sox got back for, Rafael Devers, made a start today and looked pretty good. Since coming over here, 8 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 5 walks, 9 strikeouts. So the walks are a thing, but I mean, it's the FCL that's 99% of pitchers that are going to walk a couple too many people. Overall, he's looked really good. And then Alex Bouchard actually made his first rehab start today, or not today, yesterday, I believe, in the FCL. 1 2/3 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, unearned, a walk, 3 strikeouts. So exciting to see him back. He throws really hard. The stuff's apparently looked very good. So it'll be interesting to see him get up to Salem at some point this year.
And with that, it is now time for the most amazing of amazing parts of the show. I'm just joking. Every part is amazing, equally as amazing. But it's time for Guess the Prospect. Yay! This is a special Guess the Prospect. It's the draft episode, preview episode. So people who are eligible is someone who's been drafted by the Red Sox. And I'll just get someone who's been drafted by the Red Sox from 2003 onwards, because that's the history of the Sox Prospects website. So just, so at least it shortens you guys. You don't have to guess, Jim Rice and the 15th pick, and I already forget which year it was. I think it was 1971. So
sounds right. Yeah.
So with that,
has this player played in the majors, or is that like part of the hints? Okay.
And I'll just say, yes, this player has played in the big leagues.
Yes, all right. Yeah, that narrows it down.
Give it away. They could have only played 1 game, though. So,
that's fair.
This former prospect, this might either be a dead giveaway on who it is, or you won't remember the reference. Let's see which one of you guys has a good memory. This prospect walked so Tanner Houck could run.
Justin Masterson.
Jake's got it. Boom.
that was
the
too easy.
One hint.
You shouldn't have done that.
No, it was a 1 hint and guess the prospect.
Oh, that was literally
that was it.
That was the 1 hint.
Hunter, would you have gotten that?
I don't think so.
Wow.
I mean, 1 hint and guess the
guy
prospect.
that just like every pitch that he threw had crazy movement on it. So much so that there was a play
I loved Justin Masterson.
The decisive game of the 2008 ALDS where he threw a pitch that who was catching? Maybe, I guess it was Veritek, but like basically it was the pitch had so much movement that Veritek was set up on one side of the plate and the pitch went way to the other side. It got by him. the Angels scored a run, and it looked like that was going to be it, and that they were going to lose that game, and they were going to have to. I think they were going to have to go back to Los Angeles for Game 5, but they tied it up. They ended up the Red Sox won the decisive game in that division series on a walk-off single by Jed Lowry.
King, legend.
Yes.
Just a bunch of legends being called out right now.
Yeah.
Important note on Justin Masterson is that he's from Jamaica, which I know 99% of fans probably know, but I still feel like I need to say it every time.
Well, and Masters' name has also come up again recently because there's been this talk about this trade that it came up because there's this article, I think it was in ESPN, about like the trades that like didn't happen. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but there was a couple different like Felix Hernandez trades that were mentioned, and Zach Scott, who obviously was in the Red Sox front office for many years, said that the Red Sox got close to a Felix Hernandez trade. It would have been a 3-team trade where, so Adrian Gonzales was still with the Padres at that point. It would have been Adrian Gonzales going from the Padres to Seattle, Felix going to the Red Sox, and prospects going to the to San Diego, and Josh Reddick and Justin Masterson were among the this. Zach Scott mentioning this. This was not new. Like, I was aware of this, and it's been out there for a while, but I hadn't thought about it in a while. So that would have been the trade. So Masterson would have gone to San Diego, but the GM of the Mariners at the time, Jack Zarenchik, like slept on it. He woke up the next day and was like, I can't do this.
Yeah, you can't trade Felix Hernandez.
Yeah, but they did almost trade him to Milwaukee at one point. So it was out there, but that would have been crazy. I know.
Was Masterson part of the Victor Martinez trade?
Yeah, that was how he ended up. He ended up going to the Indians, the then Indians, in that trade. But
and then he came back eventually.
V-Mart was a beast for the Red Sox.
Loved V-Mart. He was the man. Anyway.
I do find.
I was mad at that trade at first because I thought he was like going to completely take over for Veritek, but it worked out very well.
Okay.
And I was about to say, I find it funny how like both Martinez and Cespedes ended up on Detroit in like 2015. I forgot what year it was, and I was about to say 2014. I'm like, wait, no, it definitely wasn't 2014, because 2014 was the year they traded for Cespedes. The Red Sox did, but yeah, I do find that kind of wild. Also, too, my other option was I was either going to do Masterson or I was going to do Ryan Kalish, which that's
one of those prospect hills I'll die on, as he would have been so good if he didn't get hurt every 2 minutes.
He was great. I love Ryan Kalish. He was like he was gonna be like the heir apparent to Trot Nixon. Like, he was that type of guy, and it just sucks that he couldn't.
Also, just real quick, that 2006 draft for the Red Sox. I won't go through everyone, but the notables: Daniel Bard, Justin Masterson, Dustin Richardson, which is notable because he eventually leads to Roman Anthony. If you know, you know. I've gone over that before on the show. Ryan Kalish, Brandon Belt didn't sign, but he was drafted. Matt Laporta didn't sign. He ended up reaching the big leagues, though, but he didn't sign. Josh Reddick, Lars Anderson. And then there was one more. I think there's one more. Justin Papelbon's little brother, I think. It's his little brother, I think. Or is his older brother?
Yeah, Papelbon had brothers who were twins.
Josh Papelbon. Yeah, Josh Papelbon.
Yeah, he had brothers who were twins.
Yep.
Crazy.
So that was
so many Papelbons, yikes.
Yeah, so that was so that 2006 draft is kind of a wacky one. It's kind of a wacky one. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's 6-5 now. Jake's only down 1.
Wow, yeah, I'm storming back.
That's true. That is true. Also, Roman Anthony had a homer, so shout out Roman Anthony.
Hell yeah.
Hell yes. So with that, we're gonna wrap it up here. Jake's closing it back down and he gets the prospect standings. With that, next week should be an interesting one. It's kind of the mid-season mark, I guess. I say we save midseason awards for after next week because we still have a week to cover next week. I say we save the midseason awards for after next week.
There'll be games all this week. There'll be a break, and
Yes, and we'll be able to review the first round and some of the other stuff of the draft on that Monday too. So, I'd
say by the time we record, I think a good chunk of the draft will be done. So they might actually be making picks while we draft, depending on what time the draft starts on Monday. I'm not sure. That might be
that's true.
Fun.
That's also true. So that should be a fun one on Monday, and then the week after we will have our midseason awards, which we will be putting out a poll for everyone to vote for. Vote for midseason awards. So that should be a fun one. So just a heads up on that. That poll will be coming out next week after the show releases on the Tuesday. So keep an eye out for that. And as always, for Jake and for Hunter, my name is Derek. Thanks for tuning into the Minor League Show here on the Pesky Report, and we will see you next time.